Hey, J-Bone Nation! Shaming of Jay. He's not a dopey dumb bitch. He gets laid. The court jester. The court DJ. It's time to dive into the case. To the case.
What's up, everybody?
That's how I like to fire it up. Good morning, y'all. Welcome back, fam. Welcome back. Man, that's like all the greats right there. That's the way to start it off in the morning, J-Bo.
I'm glad it works in the morning. I'm going to try my best to in the afternoon session to have it working. I think I'm just going to try to reboot my whole computer at lunch. So I don't have the
It gets very sleepy. It gets tired. It's doing a lot of work. It's just a little microphone, it gets, it gets tired, it needs to take naps. Nothing wrong with that. All right. So we were a little late getting started. We wanted to jump in a little bit early today because we had seen a few questions regarding the conspiracy charges and what the state needs to prove in this Daybell case. So we thought it would be cool just instead of interrupting the trial itself, jump on a bit early, try to give you guys a bit of a primer so you have a better understanding. It's always good to know what the state is trying to prove in terms of understanding what you're watching. So, and the conspiracy charge is the one that probably requires the most explanation. So go ahead. Why don't you read that, Jay?
I will absolutely. If you didn't know this, guys, yesterday, not only did Bob stream with me all day, but he came on at night doing Delphi, and the man had to read 3 pages of stuff. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to read this because let's give Bob a little break here. I hope if you missed that live on Delphi, make sure you check it out on Bob's channel. All right. So this is Title 18, Crimes and Punishments, Chapter 17, Conspiracies, 18-1701, Criminal Conspiracy Defined. If 2 or more persons combine or conspire to commit any crime or offense prescribed by the laws of the state of Idaho, and 1 or more of such persons does any act to the effect the object of the combination or conspiracy, each shall be punishable upon conviction in the same manner and to the same extent as is provided under the laws of the state of Idaho for the punishment of the crime or offenses that each combined to commit.
All right. So how about that? That's some gobbledygook, right?
A lot of gobbledygook.
All right. So I'm going to break it down for you. All right. So anytime you've got any kind of criminal statute relating to criminal charges, there's elements. Okay. There's elements contained within that statute. Now, the elements within that, and they don't delineate them. It's one of the reasons you go to law school so that you can read through a statute and you can understand what each element is. And so when you always hear me saying that the state needs to prove each and every element of every statute or every crime that the defendant's been charged with, that's what I'm talking about. So, Jay, throw it back up and just so the people can look at it as I'm going. So what we know is that a conspiracy, again, is an agreement between 2 or more persons to do something unlawful. Okay. And there's 3 elements that are contained within that little paragraph there that the state must prove. First, they have to prove that an agreement to commit an unlawful act existed. Okay. The second thing that they have to prove is that the defendant, Chad Daybell, had knowledge of the agreement and voluntarily participated in it. And the third thing is that an overt act was performed by at least one of the co-conspirators in furtherance of the conspiracy. All right. So what do those things mean? So like an agreement requires that the partners that are making a criminal plan, they have to agree to pursue kind of the same objective. Okay. The state doesn't need to prove the specific details of the plan, only that the conspirators agreed to the plan. Okay. And its essential nature. All right. The scope of a conspiracy is really determined by the scope of the agreement. And if there's no agreement, there's no conspiracy. All right. So that's like, to be honest, like in terms of the two things that, or the thing that I'm most concerned with is it's that element, because the third element, which is an overt act. Okay. An overt act is a statement or an act that is knowingly done by one of the participants or one of the co-conspirators in an effort to accomplish the purpose of the conspiracy. It doesn't have to be in violation of the law or to be a crime itself. Like, say, for instance, Jay and I were like, yo, let's say it was me, Jay, Joe Jackalone, and Steve and Dan. We're like, yo, we're gonna do a heist. We're gonna go rob a bank. Just sitting around on a live one day, just talking shit. You know, it's like, man, money's tight. They're trying to charge us, $17 for a Subway sub, man. It's some I just spent $14 on a fucking nugget meal for my kid. I can't handle this shit. We got to go get the bank. So we talk about it, and we agree that we're going to go hit up the First National Bank of Chad Daybell's giant head. And we say, all right, look, we're going to do it. Steve and Dan, you're the getaway drivers. Joe, you're going to be the lookout. And Jay and I are going to go in and bum rush the spot. And we're going to do it. We're not going to go in with guns because we're not insane. We're going to go in with notes and the old finger in the pocket trick.
And we're going to have the presidents like Point Break. We're going to have their masks in there.
Or pantyhose, like the Nicolas Cage from Raising Arizona. Boy, you got a panty on your head. So we plan it out. We've got an in-stone plan. And then it kind of falls by the wayside. Jay and I and the boys, we all get really busy with our YouTubes, and people start giving us more supers. We're like, oh, we're getting some economic relief. Maybe we don't need to do this. But then Jay goes out and decides to buy 2 of these president masks. And that in and of itself is of course not criminal. But then it comes to be known that we were planning this, and somebody somehow hacks our shit and sees when we were backstage on Restream planning this thing out. And now Jay has gone and done an overt act towards the commission of the crime, which was, oh, look, yeah, we'll get the president masks like Point Break. So an overt act itself does not need to be criminal in order for the state to be able to meet the overt element. All right. I hope that kind of
that made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
To me.
All right. Additionally, as far as the overt act goes, and this is key in Daybell's case, the other conspirators need not join or participate or even know about it. And I'm talking about the overt act, meaning so if Chad's aware, if they can prove that Chad knows what Lori's up to with respect to the kids and maybe Tammy too, that Chad doesn't even have to have done anything in order to get nailed on conspiracy. Okay. All they have to do is show that this overt act took place and that there was an agreement. That's all they need to do. Conspiracy is actually the easiest charge to get. And just so you understand, the punishment with conspiracy is equal to that of the underlying crime, whether or not it was actually committed. So if the conspiracy was to commit murder, okay, and say, for instance, Chad, they can't prove that Chad actually did anything. If they can prove the agreement, he's punished as if he committed first-degree murder. All right.
Much like Charlie Adelson went to jail for murder. He was
exactly.
not
same exact shit. All right. And then so the second element, so we've got the agreement to commit an unlawful act. The second element is that the defendant had knowledge, okay, of an agreement and voluntarily participated in it. Okay. So again, remember, the state has to prove that the person charged with the conspiracy knew of the existence of the scheme that was alleged. All right. And knowingly joined and participated in it. Okay. So the defendant must be proven to have some knowledge of the conspiracy's objectives. However, there is no requirement that the accused know every objective in the conspiracy. Okay. So they just need to show that Chad knew that what was up with Lori, that this whole light darkness scale was a ruse, and that this whole, we got to get rid of the vessels because they're no longer humans, they're zombies or demons, and they've possessed what used to be JJ's vessel and what used to be Tylee's vessel and what used to be Tammy's vessel. I don't even know if they're going to the darkness scale on Tammy. I don't think so. But they just have to be able to start establishing that Chad had knowledge of not the religious side of it, not the light and the dark scale, but that there was going to be an end game to it, that there was going to be people that lost their lives ultimately. So, and we know that that's the case. So what they have to start really focusing on, and it's not that hard. That's why I still have hope in this case. It's not that hard. We need to quit talking about Alex, Melanie, and Lori exclusively, because if you're the jury, you're like, well, there sure the hell seems to be a conspiracy between Lori, Alex, and the way that Pryor's talking, Melanie Gibb, and maybe even David Warwick, but I'm not seeing it with Chad. So we need to start seeing the evidence of that Chad was in cahoots, that he knew what was going on, and that, like, we don't even have to show his overt act. We don't need to show that he did anything. We don't need to show that he was present for the killings. We don't need to show that he actually dug the grave. So it's definitely doable. It's definitely doable.
You see this comment on the screen here? Katha says, afternoon from Norway.
Hey,
Katha.
Hey, I love it.
We love our worldwide fans. It's amazing to see something like that.
It's amazing. What time is it over there? It's got to be, I'm guessing, it's got to be early evening, right? Or maybe late afternoon.
Afternoon. So yeah, that's actually. But yeah, thanks everyone for being here. We really appreciate it. Hope you appreciated that breakdown. Bob, what that immediately made me think of, and I guess it goes back to the comment, as someone said, I'm so obsessed with Wendy Adelson. But like, I wonder if the Florida statute is the same. Like, just having a little knowledge. Like, did she know about it? If that's enough to take her down, we'll have to, look into that.
Right. I mean, like, the more likely scenario in that is, again, it's going to most likely be that conspiracy charge. That is, it's the easiest to prove. It's way easier, and like you said, it's like they're going, like, just like any other crime, they can use circumstantial evidence to get there. They're like, they understand, the law understands that people typically aren't stupid enough to commit their plan to commit a crime into writing. So you're allowed to use circumstantial evidence, which would indicate that, look, clearly we see the end result. Clearly there was a plan to get there. And clearly these are the people involved. So, but we need to start seeing it from Chad, is what I'm saying. That's what I was saying all day yesterday. I'm like, okay, enough Lori and Alex shit. We let the defense focus on that. The state needs to be narrowing in, targeting Chad, bringing Chad into this narrative, because Chad, in my estimation, where we stand right now, aside from his consciousness of guilt thing with his conversation with his daughter in the squad car, I've seen very, very little of bringing Chad into the narrative. Because like Pryor's got this thing. Look, he was a guy stepping out on his wife in a religion where that is exceptionally frowned upon. Like everything that you're seeing isn't about him murdering kids. It's about him being in love with this woman who is aggressively trying to get him to make moves so that she can be with him. And he's kind of navigating it the best he can. He's trying to put her, you know what I mean? Like that's his whole narrative. That's his story. And I don't know that the state has done much to dissuade a jury that that's not true at this point. So they better get busy. It's time to get to work.
Amy here agrees with you. I agree with Bob. It's mostly been about Lori and Alex. And, it's interesting, Bob, when you brought up, like, it doesn't have to be overt. Like, they know that people aren't going to just be like, hey, but prior, it's interesting. He will a lot of times on cross be like, well, so there wasn't a text that said, hey, I'm going to murder. Like, he keeps saying that a lot. It's interesting that, like, it doesn't have to be that,
right?
Because like you said, no one expects criminals like, hey, we're at 10 o'clock, we're going to go shoot, we're going to go strangle Tammy. Like, it's not, people know, at least most people know not to do that. Some people don't, but.
Right. I mean, like essentially what they have to do is they have to put the pieces together, like any circumstantial evidence. You know what I'm saying? Like any case where you have circumstantial evidence, you've got the pieces of the puzzle. You know what the end result of the crime is, right? And in this case, it's either JJ or Tylee or Tammy losing their life. So you've got to put the pieces of the puzzle together in terms of showing what the agreement is. So, like Chad is here at one point, and then Chad's here at another point, and they're going to have to build it through messages that are cryptic, through texts that are cryptic, through emails that are cryptic, through, locations that, kind of add up to where, like, look, this is where somebody was at a certain time, and we know that this happened. So, I mean, they've just got to build the narrative, and be able to get that through to the jury in a way that they understand. Because believe me, I mean, the jury wants somebody to pay for this crime, and I can't assume that they know that Lori went down on it. I mean, they may not. I mean, you would think that kind of everybody does, but like people just don't get outside of our weirdo true crime community world. Like people don't give a shit about this stuff.
So true.
I mean, you can walk down the street and talk to 100 people in a row, and not one of them will know anything about this case or any case because it's just not their jam.
Prior to a year ago, that would have been me. Like I do nothing. Like nothing. Like even Long Island serial killer. I live on Long Island. I knew like vague details about it. Right. I knew nothing. So, and I have to say, what's awesome is you asked to do that poll, Bob, and I did, and it was like 60-40. But the best thing is, like, clearly people don't agree, but like. We thank you guys because our chat has been. I know there are people who don't agree, but everyone's been respectful.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. We love to see that. We love that poll was at 95% because then why even watch the trial if like you're just so it's great that you guys have and the mods, of course, as always keeping it in line.
And what's better than like intelligent, spirited conversation? I mean, there's nothing that makes a day go by faster than to be able to have an enjoyable debate about something that ultimately, like, we're not going to have any impact on what's going to happen, but we're allowed to have our opinions, and like it's part of the fun of it. It's part of why we enjoy watching it. It's weird to say that it's fun to watch trials about events where people lost their lives, but from the just the purient interest in these things that we all, for whatever reason, we all love true crime. It's because typically can't write this shit. It's like, like it's stranger than fiction real life is. It just is, and it's like we see it time after time after time after time. And, and in the interest of justice, this process is fascinating. It just is. Like the trial process from beginning to end, starting with the pretrial motions, like where I'm always saying that's where the war really takes place, is fascinating. It's just a fascinating process. And it's such a critical part of the fabric of our country. I love that people love this shit. I love that people love to nerd out on the law side of it. I love that people love learning shit about it because it matters to us. We should take an interest in it. It's a huge, huge part of our society. I mean, could you imagine If it didn't exist, we'd be some lawless, Mad Max Thunderdome shit going on, man. So, all right, did they fire it up yet?
No, I got it on, so I'll go live. I want to say, speaking of like interesting cases where there's stuff going on pre-trial, if you guys missed it, and then me and Bob continue our campaign to get the Buzz Boys to 10K. Steve did a very interesting live yesterday talking about the alibi motion in the Brian Kohlberger case. And he was watching some video with Andrea Burkhart, like some different breakdowns of what the technology they're using as far as locations. It was really interesting. So guys, check out Publicly Buzzed, his show last night. I think he might be doing a similar. So we're getting these boys to 10K. They're, I think, they're close to 9,500. We got to get them. They deserve to be at 10K.
Steve, I got long thoughts on that, man. Like, I love that. Hit me up, dude. Like, if you're going to do a live with that, I'll jump on, because that was a super interesting motion. You're talking about the motion for there's two that were really interesting: the alibi, but also the survey, which like where I don't know, Jay, if you're hip to that. The defense had done a survey, a poll.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And when the judge first heard about it, he lost his mind. It's like, why are you talking about the facts of the case? And there's a gag order. And, we had done the same thing, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to get a change of venue. They're saying, look, we can't have this trial here. It's like everyone knows this case here. It's like way too big of a case. And so what they did, and we did the same thing in Garcia, we hired a polling company to poll. Now, we kept our questions way more generic, like kind of baseline questions. Like, have you heard about the case against Anthony?
All right, thank you. Please be seated.
All right, let's go. So hit me up, Steve-O.
And Mr. Bader, if we can have the jurors brought in.
It might be Zulema, folks. We don't know. We're going to keep an eye out. Thank you so much. Deja, our wonderful mom, just gave out a membership, and my mom just did. Thank you so much, guys.
Aw, Mama Jay. You're so sweet.
Who my kids, the boys are on. Shan just came back with Sloan, but the boys are on spring break, and right now they're at my mom's, and she's putting them to work. So
I like it. It's good. It's good to build character. Put those kids to work.
Thank you all so much for being here. Good morning. Good morning. Hit that like on the way in. We appreciate it.
Let's see who this witness is. I think like at the end of the day, I think I had hit just shy of 300 on the live. That was like my max. And I think people did pretty good on the likes. I think I was at like 240 when we cut, which is pretty solid, man. It's like, we don't really understand how the algorithm works, but we understand that, like, hitting the like button and sharing and
commenting,
like, it helps somehow. We don't know how.
We're cavemen people.
Your world frightens and confuses me.
But we know that it somehow helps us.
Right. When I saw the eclipse, I thought it was the moon eating the sun.
By the way, Phil Hartman, just one of the greatest of all time. Yeah, everything. News radio. Bob, were you a news radio?
Yeah.
What a great show.
What a great show. What a great cast. Another show that just had an unbelievable cast. Like, I was texting with my friend who just kind of got hip to Parks and Rec.
Thank you. Please be
and I'm
seated.
like, when you look at that cast at Parks and Rec,
oof, that's a good one.
They all, like, aside from like Amy Poehler, who was already kind of famous from Saturday Night Live, but like that whole, like, Chris Pratt, like that whole cast. It was phenomenal.
Nick Offerman,
dude, please.
All right, we are back on the record on Fremont County case CR 22-21-1623. Counsels present, as well as the defendant and defense counsel. The court will note that all 18 jurors are present and properly seated, and the court has reviewed and confirmed that all 18 jurors have signed their juror affirmation for the day. So thank you again for following the court's admonishment given to you at the end of each day. We're continuing with the case in chief of the state. I believe the state at this point is calling its next witness, and who's going to be conducting direct.
Your Honor, the state will be calling Brenda Dye, and I'll be handling that.
All right, Mr. Wixom, then you can call your witness.
Brenda something? No Zulema. I bet we'll probably know about her first when, like, people start tweeting that, like, she's in, like, not in the courtroom, but maybe, like, around the court or something. I don't know.
Oh, thank you for asking, Pokemon. We did. It was very difficult. It was very
Or
difficult.
affirm
She
that
asked
the
if we
testimony you're
found,
about to give
they're
will be
actually
the
called
truth, the whole truth,
character
and nothing.
shoes, Jay. So they're
Character
like,
shoes.
yes, they're like dance shoes, but they had a heel.
Ooh.
So I'm like, how long have you known that you were going to need these particular shoes? She's like, oh, about a week. And I'm like, and so you need them tonight. So you need them in an hour. Like, I have to get you over to like rehearsal in an hour. She's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, this isn't like a Target JCPenney shoe. I'm like, so I'm Googling, find like a dance studio that has like a shop connected to it. I'm like, oh, I don't even know what they're called. I'm like, have one of your friends who has them that's in the play, send us a picture so that I can show it to somebody so they can tell me what the hell they are. So yeah, thank you for asking. We got it done. She was a little late to rehearsal, but she got them and she needed them. So yeah, it was panic
Let the
inducing
truth
for
to help
sure.
you, God. Thank you.
Nothing like the last minute kid telling you they need something for their project.
Well, dude, they don't send shit home like papers anymore. It's
No,
like
you got to be on that app, Bob. You got to be on the app, Bob.
got to be on the app.
Parent Square, or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah, like ours is yeah, I can't remember. It's like Infinity.
All right, now that the witness has been sworn, let me just inquire, because this trial is being
Thank you,
live
Missy.
streamed and accessible
Thank
to
you
the
very much.
public. I wanted
Missy
to inquire
Mayhem.
on
What a
the
sweet,
court's
sweet bean.
exclusionary order.
The best.
Ms. Dye, have you reviewed or watched any of the trial testimony that's taken place since the case started?
No.
Okay, and have you talked to anyone else about their testimony they've given in trial?
No.
Okay, with that affirmation, then I'll allow Mr. Wixom to commence with the direct, and I'll ask the witness, please talk right into the microphone so we make sure to pick up your words. And go ahead, Mr. Wixom.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Dye.
Good morning.
Will you please state and spell your full name for the record?
Brenda Dye, Brenda. Last name Dye, Dye.
Thank you. And ma'am, where do you live?
I live in Fremont County, Island Park, Idaho.
Make coffee. I'll be right
And
back.
what do you do for a living?
I am the Fremont County Coroner, and I also work for Fremont County EMS as an EMT.
And to clarify that for the jury, as an EMS, are you trained in life-saving techniques?
Yes.
As an EMS, are you trained in autopsies or any of those kinds of things?
No.
How long have you been the coroner?
I took office in January of 2019.
So when you say that you took office, you're an elected position?
I am, yes.
When you took office at that time, did you receive any specialized training as to how to be a coroner?
Very limited training. I did attend a 2-day training in Boise. And then I attended probably a 4-day training in Las Vegas, Nevada in July of 2019.
Since that time, have you received other training as a coroner?
Yes.
What training have you received?
Every spring and fall training in Boise, here in Boise. And then every July, we have a training in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I've attended that every year since 2019.
Can you explain to the jury what is the primary function and role of a coroner in Idaho?
We respond to unattended deaths. We determine the cause of death. We make sure that our decedent gets to the proper funeral home. And then I sign off on the death certificate.
Okay. I want to back up and have you explain a little bit. Does Idaho have an ME system, a medical examiner system?
Yes, and here in Ada County, that's our closest facility to take our decedents for autopsy.
Typically, in most counties in Idaho, do they have their own ME?
No.
I'd like you to kind of please explain what functions or things do you do to help determine a cause of death when you arrive at an unattended death?
We conduct an investigation. We look for weapons, we look for medications, we look for the family to give us information, health history about for the decedent.
And just for the jury's sake, from your perspective, how do you define an unattended death?
A death that is not someone who's not directly under a doctor's care.
And you just noted that one of the things you do is to look for weapons. Why do you do that?
To determine cause of death.
Why is identifying whether there's a weapon important in determining a cause of death?
If it was homicide, suicide, medications for natural health history.
Okay. What factors as a coroner do you look at when you determine whether or not to have an autopsy performed?
When we conduct our investigation, we usually have a detective on scene who helps us determine that. And usually if we cannot find a cause of death. And
Just got a $10 PayPal from Rhoda or Andorra. Thank you so much.
we don't do a lot of autopsies just because of my budget. It doesn't allow for us to do a lot of autopsies, and we have to come over to Ada County and transport the body over here if we deem it necessary for an autopsy.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you to define for the jury some terms that you might typically use as a coroner. Are you familiar with the term lividity? Can you explain to the jury what that word means?
Judge, can I have some foundation as to how she knows about lividity?
Mr. Rickson?
Ma'am, how do you know what the word lividity means?
My training and my EMS training for years.
Will you please go ahead and explain to the jury what that word means?
Yes, it's the lowest point of the body that the blood pools when somebody is no longer living, and it pulls at the lowest point in the body, and it looks like a bruise. It looks like a red. Oops.
Help the jury understand, how does identifying whether or not there's lividity help you in your role as a coroner?
It helps me to know how the body was found, how the body, the position of the body at the time of death.
Why is that important for you?
To know if the body was moved. That's the most important, is to know if someone has moved the body or not.
Drenda with a $10 Venmo. Thank you so much, Drenda. You're awesome. Thank you.
Perhaps maybe this is more of a common term, but can you explain to the jury your understanding of the definition of rigor mortis?
Rigor mortis is stiffening of the body. It normally occurs 2 to 6 hours after the time of death, and then it releases after about 8 hours approximately.
And why is identifying rigor mortis important to your role as a coroner?
To determine the time of death.
In addition to rigor mortis, are there other things that you look at to determine time of death?
Yes, we can look at lividity, rigor mortis, the temperature of the body. A lot of times, well, the abdominal cavity is the last part of the body to lose its warmth. So if somebody is cold to the touch on the abdomen, they have been deceased for quite a while.
And then when you are responding to an unattended death and are making a determination if an autopsy is necessary, what other factors besides those mentioned do you look at or consider to determine if an autopsy is appropriate?
I think for a minute. Part of our investigation when we cannot determine a cause of death, or if it is a homicide, then we do autopsies. Child deaths, we normally do autopsies.
Dude, Pryor is going to destroy this young lady. But can she be worse than in Murdaugh when the dude said he checked the time of death by checking the armpits? We shall see. Oh, just got a $10 Venmo from Michelina. Thank you so much. Or Michelina? Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Thank you so much.
Okay. I want to draw your attention back to October 19th of 2019. Do you recall responding to an unattended death for a Tammy Daybell?
Yes.
And prior to responding to that, had you ever heard Tammy Daybell's name?
No.
You didn't know her in any way?
No.
What about her husband, Chad Daybell? Were you familiar with him at all?
No.
Any of the Daybell family members that you were acquainted with or knew in any way?
No.
So can you explain to the jury, when you responded to that unattended death, how did you receive that call or that request to come?
I was on the ambulance for my other job, and we were returning from an ambulance call from the hospital, and I received a call from our dispatch that there was an unattended death that I needed to respond to.
Is that the norm? Dispatch will call you?
Yes.
Right. And to the best you can recall, what time of day did you receive that call?
It was early morning.
And did you respond immediately?
I got there as quickly as I could. I had the ambulance drop me off on my way back through.
When you say the ambulance dropped you off, were you hurt or were you working otherwise?
No, I was working.
How long approximately did it take for you to arrive on scene for the time you got the initial call?
Approximately 45 minutes.
And prior to arrival, did you talk to anybody else about helping you with this?
Yes, I called my deputy coroner, Wilmore. She's about 10 minutes away from where the deceased was. And dispatch had called me a few times to request my estimated time of arrival because the decedent's husband was very distraught, very upset, crying. And so I had my deputy go and start the investigation until I showed up.
Are you aware, was anybody else dispatched or sent to the scene?
Yes, we had Officer Greenhalgh there.
So at the time that you arrived, had Officer Greenhalgh and Deputy Coroner Wilmore already arrived?
Yes.
Okay. So I want you to tell the jury, what's the first thing that you observed when you arrived on scene?
I observed Chad, the husband, very distraught, very upset, walking around. And his son was on scene also with him, Garth. Chad was very distraught. Garth was emotionless to me.
And for the jury's sake, can you describe your recollection of the layout of the home when you first arrived there?
I walked into the kitchen, and there I met with Officer Greenhalgh and Deputy Wilmore, and they kind of filled me in on what they had done, what they had seen.
And then at some point, did you go in and observe Tammy Daybell's body?
Yes, I did.
And how did you get there?
I walked through the kitchen, down the hall into the back bedroom.
Who took you into the bedroom?
I believe Officer Greenhalgh and Deputy Wilmore.
And at some point, did you engage Chad Daybell in any conversation or discussion?
Yes.
When did you do that?
After I looked at the body, I questioned Chad about Tammy's health, her past health history.
Your Honor, at this time, rather than republishing this exhibit, I would ask to have the witness provided the state's exhibit 295D is in David.
Okay.
Your hand.
Shannon L., you're not, you're honestly not in bad shape. I mean, they've had a lot of witnesses, but we think there's a lot more to come. We think that there's a lot more to come because we really haven't seen much in relation to Chad, but it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, and plus we're like what 2 weeks, and they think it's gonna be 6 to 8. There's got to be more stuff going.
There's it's like they're gonna
For the record,
start honing in on Chad and his
what
giant
are you
head.
holding in your hand?
I'm holding a picture of Tammy, deceased on the bed.
In looking at that photo, on the back, but is there a mark on it?
The exhibit.
Yes, ma'am. Do you see that?
Yes.
Will you just note for the record what number that is?
295D.
Thank you. Now flipping it back over and looking at it, just can you confirm for the jury, is what you see in that picture the same position that Tammy's body was in when you first walked into the room and observed her?
Yes.
What did you first observe about her body when you first went in and looked at her?
I observed the blood tinged sputum coming from her mouth. Kind of a foam, a pink foam. She was wrapped in a blanket. I asked if that is the position she was in when she was found, and Chad told me no, she was hanging half off the bed with her face and head towards the floor on her left side. When he discovered she was deceased, he called for Garth to help him, whose bedroom was across the hall, and they picked her up off the floor and put her on the bed and covered her with a blanket.
At that moment in time, when you were observing her, did you do anything to physically check her or touch her?
Yes, I did.
What did you do?
Looked at the body. We always look at the body and know any injuries, any signs of struggle, anything. I did observe rigor mortis had set in, lividity on the back side, so her back, her bottom, her legs, the back of her legs as she was laying. And then I also noted that she was cold to the touch. Her abdomen was cold, so.
When you just noted that you observed lividity, did you make that observation at that moment in time, or did you examine her body? At what point did you identify what you thought was lividity?
At that point, when I examined her body, I saw lividity.
What, if anything, let me withdraw that. Did you just tell us, did you observe lividity on her body?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did that lividity tell you?
That she died on her back.
Did you observe anything else in the room at the time?
Yes, there was a kitchen towel to the side of the bed.
Jay, throw Brooklyn's because we have people talking about the pink foam. Can you throw Brooklyn's stuff up there, please? Thank you.
It's pleural effusion, purge liquid from the lungs mixed with blood. Blood could be from trauma, either natural or like GERD.
GERD.
Thank you. GERD.
Brooklyn knows, dude. Like
Brooklyn does know.
She was kicking the knowledge yesterday about that pink foam.
Thank you, Brooklyn.
Yep.
Always bringing it.
Always bringing it.
And it had the pink blood tinged sputum on it. And I asked Chad if he had used that towel. He said yes, that he had used that towel to wipe her face.
And you were starting to explain to the jury, Chad gave you an accounting of how he discovered her.
Yes, he said that He felt her body roll off the bed, and that's what awakened him. And just because of the rigor mortis, the lividity, the coldness of her body, I asked how that was possible if she had been gone that long. And he said it may have been from him pulling on the sheets and releasing her body as it fell. He stated that she was going through menopause and she had hot flashes, and she liked to sleep with her feet outside the covers and on the edge of the bed.
What triggered you to inquire how that is possible, or his account of how the body fell? Why did you question that?
Because if someone's dead, they can't roll out of bed. So I was trying to understand how that woke him up when somebody is dead, they can't move.
Did his explanation make sense to you?
The explanation of maybe him pulling on the sheet or the blanket released her body. But looking back on it, no.
Why, looking back on it, does it not make sense to you?
It would take a lot of force to roll a body out of bed.
So I'll move on. What else, if anything, did Chad tell you at that time about Tammy?
Chad stated that Tammy had been feeling really off for the past few months. He stated that she had told him she felt outside of her body, not normal. He told me that she had been having fainting spells. And one occasion he said they were at the temple and she was kneeling at the altar, and when she went to stand up, she fainted. He said she had extremely low blood pressure, but she did not seek medical attention for that from a doctor. He said she did not like going to the doctor, and she would try to treat everything natural. There
thinking the
was
same
a lot
thing.
of natural supplements and oils
Over
in
time,
the kitchen cupboard
a little bit at a
when we
time.
were looking for medications, and also a natural remedy book on her side table in the bedroom.
I want to take you back. You said that Chad indicated to you that Tammy had a low blood pressure problem,
Yes.
but she wouldn't go to the doctor about that?
Yes, he said that she tested it like on a Walmart or Walgreens blood pressure machine.
I used to use those when I was a kid.
Did
Went
Chad
into
give
Walgreens,
you,
Yeah, you had to.
Trap my arm in there. I like the machine. Can I do the machine? Oh, hey, by the way, Ghost of Buddy the Elf, thank you very much. And I love that handle so much. It's so good.
By the way, Bob, you got a nice comment when you were getting coffee. I charm 69. I could be having a bad day and hear you say, "Oh, family hug," and it makes me smile. Never change, Bob Bada.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. It makes me feel so good.
any accounting of the timing of the night before and kind of how he perceived Tammy?
Yes, he said about 12:30 she was having a coughing fit and she vomited in the bathroom. He helped her back to bed. She said she was okay, and then he went to sleep.
Did he ever identify for you what time it was that he claimed he was woken up by her falling?
Approximately 12. Oh, her falling out of bed?
Yes.
I think it was just before 6 a.m. in the morning.
You indicated that there were some, I think you talked about supplements or oils that were found in the home.
Yes.
Okay. And did anybody tell you whether or not those were things that Tammy was using?
Yes.
Who told you that?
Chad.
What did he say about that specifically?
That she liked to try and treat everything naturally and not go to the doctor. But we did find a prescription for fluoxetine. And Garth admitted that he was sharing that with his mom for his depression, anxiety.
Did you identify any other prescribed medications in the home?
Just the fluoxetine and then over-the-counter medications and the natural supplements.
You mentioned earlier that Chad had said that Tammy had been feeling out of her body.
Yes.
Your experience as a coroner, is that a common way or a common symptom for someone to describe?
Judge calls for speculation.
Overruled.
Could you repeat it? Sorry.
In your experience, is saying that I feel out of my body a common thing for someone to describe as a symptom?
It can be, yes.
What did you take that to mean, and how did that play into your assessment?
With the low blood pressure, with the fainting spells. And also he did say that she had a fall a month or two prior to this day, and she hurt her wrist. She did go to the doctor for that because she was afraid it was broke. And the doctor did prescribe tramadol for that. There was no tramadol found on scene. He stated that she had taken the prescription as prescribed.
Now, I want to be clear, as a coroner, you're not a medical doctor.
No.
Are MEs medical doctors?
Yes.
At the time you were on scene, besides identifying the supplements or the fluoxetine,
Yes.
did you have access to any medical records for Tammy?
No, those we have to request from the doctor, and it can take up to weeks to receive those.
So at that time, I'll withdraw that. At that point in time, approximately how many unattended deaths had you responded to?
It was my first year being in office, so under 10.
And now, on average, how many unattended deaths do you respond to?
It could be 20 to 50 a year.
And ultimately, did you determine what you believed was the time of death for Tammy?
We estimated the time of death. If we don't have an exact time, then we do an estimation of when she was last seen alive and when we get the call. And then lividity, rigor mortis, and the temperature of the body also plays into that.
And ultimately, do you determine a cause of death, and are you the one who signs a death certificate?
Yes.
And did you do that in this case?
Yes.
What did you determine the cause of death for Tammy was initially?
I determined it was pulmonary edema.
Will you explain that to the jury?
Due to a cardiac event. So pulmonary edema is the backup of fluid, blood in the lungs. And where he told me she had low blood pressure and the fainting spells, that can play into that part. And also, I asked about any seizure-like activity because of the foam in the mouth. Chad did tell me that she did have shaking fits when she would faint. So her legs would shake and she would convulse.
And how did you factor that into your determination of cause of death, that accounting from Chad about shaking fits?
Seizure-like activity.
And what led you to, you mentioned a second ago that you had included in your potential cause of death a heart attack. What led you to include that?
A cardiac event, just because of the extremely low blood pressure and the fainting, which if your blood pressure does drop really low, it does make you faint.
Now, as a coroner, do you make a decision about an autopsy based upon a family's wishes?
No.
Is that something you consider, though?
Ultimately, the decision is up to me. If I deem one necessary, then I do it, regardless of family's wishes.
In this instance, did you have a discussion with Chad or with the family about their feelings about an autopsy?
I did mention it. Chad didn't seem to want it or not want it. But Emma was on scene, Chad's daughter, and she really didn't want her mom to have an autopsy. It's pretty extensive, and she didn't want her mom's body to have to go through that.
So understanding that you make the shots in the call, do you still, as a factor, at least consider what the family is telling you about their wishes?
If I deem it necessary, then I do order an autopsy. If I do not deem it necessary and the family requests an autopsy, then they're responsible to pay for that autopsy.
Now, have you recently made any amendments to the death certificate?
Yes.
And what have you done with that?
The manner of death was changed to homicide. The cause of death was changed to asphyxiation by suffocation.
Can you explain to the jury, why did you make that change?
Tammy's body was exhumed, and a medical examiner from Utah autopsied her body. She had a very deep...
Judge, I'm going to object at this point. She's calling to make conclusions that she doesn't have any foundation, or we don't have any foundation to suggest she's qualified to make. And in addition, she's going to be reciting what another medical examiner may or may not have said.
All right, on lack of foundation, I'll sustain the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, you mentioned that there was an autopsy performed.
Yes,
Did you attend that autopsy?
yes,
Were you present for the beginning to end of the autopsy?
yes,
As you were there, were you standing there with the ME performing the autopsy?
yes,
Was the ME explaining as performing the autopsy what they were seeing?
yes,
As a 20-year veteran as an EMS, were you understanding the terms and things that were being explained to you in the ME?
yes, yes.
So then I'd like you to please go ahead with what you were explaining to us about.
Judge, and I'm going to renew my objection. At this point, it's relying on hearsay to make a determination of what someone else may have said about what they think they may or may not have found.
It's overruled.
Go ahead, please, ma'am.
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
I was asking you to please explain what you were observing during the autopsy that helped cause you to change your mind about the cause of death.
As they were dissecting the bruise, it was a very deep bruise on her arm. It didn't make sense that she had thrown up the night before because she still had stomach contents.
I pause you, please.
Yes.
Explain that to the jury, please.
So her stomach was full of food. If she threw up, there wouldn't be food in her stomach during the autopsy. I was going to say, so I'm the one that signs the death certificate. I'm the one that makes that determination. I do, if we do an autopsy on a body, I do take the medical examiner's words, advice. I'm not a doctor, they're a doctor. When they do the autopsy, then it helps me figure out the cause of death.
You explained earlier that one of the bases for your original determination was seizures. What did you learn from the autopsy about that factor or that aspect of Tammy?
All of Tammy's organs were very healthy. There was nothing in the brain. The heart was healthy. The only organ that was not healthy were the lungs. When they were dissected, there was still foam, a lot of foam in the lungs.
How did that impact your decision to change the death certificate?
There shouldn't have been that foam in the lungs still. It was 2 months before she was exhumed and then autopsy was done.
Is there anything else besides the autopsy that has impacted your decision to change the amended death certificate?
Yes.
What other things?
I received a call from Arizona police. They wanted all of my coroner records. There had been a death in Arizona, and Chad's name was brought up. And there was also an attempt. And when I heard all those names and the investigation that was going on, and then it did change my mind. If I had known that information, it would have been.
Who were the names that had been brought up?
Lori Bello,
I'll withdraw. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Lori Bello, Alex Cox, Chad Daybell.
You mentioned the word attempt. What did you mean by that?
An attempt for Lori's niece's husband, attempt a shooting.
At the time that you made your original determination, had you heard the name J.J. Vallow or Tylee Ryan?
No.
Did information related to those names also impact your decision to amend the death certificate?
Yes.
As you sit there today, do you have any regrets about your original decision?
Yes.
What are those regrets?
So, had I known that information, I would have ordered an autopsy. At that time, with my limited training and being new, I did the best I could with what training I had at that time.
Thank you, ma'am. Your Honor, I have no more questions at this time.
Oh boy, guys, just get ready because Pryor is about to destroy this lady. Get ready for the
Okay, drugs are back. Okay.
I mean, she is like
Cross-examination.
not confident. She is.
I mean, hindsight's 20/20, dude.
No, I know. I'm just saying. Like, I don't
I
think.
know what you're saying. I mean, I agree. He's gonna give her the business, but
Judge, before we start, I have Exhibit 19 and 20. If I could provide those to the bailiff to have those marked. My understanding is 19 and 20 are admitted by way of stipulation of the parties.
Okay, have they? And what are those, Mr. Pryor?
Those are a death, 20 is a death certificate, 19 are pictures. And Judge, we'll have a sidebar prior to going forward with the pictures, if that's acceptable to the
All right, how many pictures have you got in?
It's going to be one. There are a number of pictures, A through I think K, but specifically it's going to be F that I think I'm going to be looking at. But I'll request a sidebar before we go down that road, Judge.
Okay.
Your Honor, for my benefit, can I just ask counsel to refresh me what these photos are of? Are they of Tammy's death scene?
Correct.
Thank you.
And Judge, there may be some overlap with what the state had admitted as well previously. So.
Sounds like we have a defense exhibit 20 that's already been admitted.
They may or They may already be on there.
Okay, so the death certificate, Exhibit 20, has previously been admitted?
I didn't have a recollection of that, Judge. My notes didn't reflect that. I apologize.
All right, thank you. So you can, if you can start there, and when we get to the pictures, if we have exhibits not yet admitted, we'll take those up in turn.
All right.
All right, I want to try. This is a boxing bell for when things get like between parties. Let's see if this is good.
Wait, what? I like the double ding. Ding ding.
I know I didn't like that one. Let me see if this one's better. I don't know. That one was long. What the hell?
That's good.
All right, I'll try one more. Let's see this.
I like the two, really. It's like ding ding.
Steve has the best one. I gotta get that one. All right, sorry guys.
Judge, whenever I can go forward.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. Thank you.
We'll do that.
So, and how would you like me to address you? Ms. Dye or Coroner Dye?
Too loud.
Ms. Dye
Sorry
is
guys,
okay?
I'll make them lower.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Ms. Dye, you had an occasion to discuss this case with the FBI. Do you recall that?
Yes,
And that discussion took place at the Rexburg Police Department?
yes,
Okay. And as part of that discussion with the FBI, you had mentioned that you had worked for EMS for 20 years,
yes,
that you were an EMT for 5 years and an advanced EMT for 15. Is that still accurate?
that was in 2019, so
You have even more experience now.
I have more experience now, yes.
So when you're talking about an EMT and an advanced EMT, an advanced EMT is someone who is qualified to give medication. Is that right?
Certain medication, yes.
And there's also additional training as well, identifying medical emergencies. But in addition, there's also some training as it relates to death scene investigation. Is there not?
Yes,
And for 20 years, you had experience doing that, right?
my main concern as an EMT is to save lives.
I understand that, but if the life can't be saved, you're still, as an EMT for 20 years, given a significant amount of training about the death scene investigation, are you not?
If we can't save the patient before I was coroner, then no, I didn't. We would leave the scene.
Okay. Now, when you spoke with the FBI, your testimony with the prosecuting attorney is you said something about taking a 2-day seminar. Is that right? Some sort of 2-day training?
In Boise, yes.
And then you said there was some other classes or some other issues, right? That you took?
There's a week-long conference and it's about 4 days, but yes, it's a week long in Las Vegas, Nevada.
And that's what I was
year.
curious about, because you mentioned something about something else, but when you talked to the FBI, you described it as a week-long conference with the FBI as part of your training, right?
Right.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And what areas did that cover as part of that week-long conference?
Causes of death, times of death. It covers a wide variety.
It's an extensive course.
Yes, it was my first time attending too.
And is it required as part of being a coroner? Isn't that one of the requirements that you have to go through that training in order to be either elected or appointed as a coroner of a county?
Yes.
And you have to get this extensive training because we're not dealing with a minor issue. We're dealing with making a significant determination of the cause of death of somebody, aren't we? Ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. And are you familiar with Title 19, Chapter 43 of the Idaho Code?
I don't recall.
Judge, would there be something that could refresh your recollection if I showed you something?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, if you would be so kind as to just read that. I'm not having it marked, just to be credited. You can read that, take the time to read that, and then when you're done, hand it back to the bailiff, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. $43.01, Judge. I have another copy. If I would like, I could provide it to the court.
Fine, I have it.
In Chapter 43. Now, you've read Title 19, Chapter 43 of 01 of the Idaho Code. Is that?
Objection, Your Honor.
Grounds.
Your Honor, this witness is not qualified to give she has no legal expertise to be interpreting statutes for the jury.
Well, if it calls for a legal conclusion, I'll sustain it, but I don't know what the question is yet, so overruled for now.
Now, ma'am, did you have an occasion to read that as part of your responsibilities of becoming a coroner?
When I first took over as coroner, yes.
Right. So you're aware that your primary job as a coroner under this particular legal statute of the law is when a county coroner is informed that
Objection, Your Honor. This is calling for a legal conclusion.
it's not, Judge.
Overruled.
When a county coroner is informed that a person has died, the county coroner shall investigate the death. You read that first line, right? And you're aware of that, right?
Yes.
You are under a legal obligation under the law as part of your position to investigate any death, correct?
Yes.
And if that death was suspicious or unknown circumstances, that's sub B, or the death occurred as a result of violence, whether by homicide, suicide, accident, you are required to investigate, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then as a result, if you determine that there's an issue, you can require an inquest to be conducted, which is basically like a jury trial, right? You understand that?
Yes.
Okay. And you are also to notify the police if you have any, before even doing an inquest, if you have any concerns under the statute that there's anything suspicious or out of the ordinary, you are to notify the police department and ask them to conduct an investigation. You understand that as well?
Yes, and we did have an officer on scene that helped investigate this. And we have an officer respond to every death call that helps investigate.
And I appreciate that, ma'am. But in talking to the prosecutor, you talked about, well, the lapidity caused me some concern. Remember you said that about lapidity, that was a concern of yours and your questions weren't answered, right? Well, at the time of the scene there, you said, you noticed lapidity in the body, that Tammy Daybell apparently had died on her back, right?
Right.
Okay. Was that of a concern of yours at the time that would cause you to say, maybe I ought to take a step back before I sign this death certificate?
At that time, no.
Okay, but you were fully aware of the lapidity that you're claiming had occurred at that point. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. There were no fresh bruises on Tammy Daybell's body anywhere, were there?
On her arm, yes.
Those were fresh bruises?
I don't know. I'm not qualified to.
Well, you did
Like that.
you did a report in that regard, did you not?
I did, and it looked like an old bruise to me. And with
That's we'll get to that.
okay.
So when you filled out your medical report, you specifically not only identified that she had bruises on her arm, you actually used the word old bruises. Do you remember that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And these were not fresh or red or irritated or anything like that, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. The witness has already indicated she's not qualified to determine that.
Well, based on our observations, all overruled.
These weren't fresh bruises, were they, on her arms? These were old bruises, just like what your report says, correct?
I can't answer that.
Okay. But you will answer that on your report, when you decided to fill out a report relating to this case, that report said old bruises. When the picture of the body, you wrote on the arms, old bruises on the arms, right?
Yes.
Chad is on fire with the lapidity.
No other bruises on her body anywhere else, right?
No,
Nothing
I had to
else that would,
Google it. I'm like,
would
wait, is
deem
that
to
a
be
word?
suspicious on her body,
I
correct?
mean, lividity is certainly the word he's trying to use. Ah,
no,
I love that somebody's
And
using
in
the
fact,
twerp
there was no
emojis.
indication of any
Thank
trauma to the
you,
neck that
Mindy.
you could observe,
Oh, it was
right?
Missy. Love it.
no.
There
Jay,
were
I'm
no
bringing
scratch
twerp
marks on her hands that would indicate
What are you bringing back?
back. The word twerp, because it's
Twerp.
fucking great. Twerp. Yeah, twerp. What a twerp. It's just a good
any
word.
kind of a struggle, correct?
No.
There was no irritation on her ears or her face or her head that would give you any indication that there was any kind of a struggle. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Look at this, Bob.
When you arrived,
Lauren's mom calls her.
Lauren, that's awesome. I mean,
Chad Daybell
I just
was
like, I love that
distraught.
word. I bring words back. Like I told you the story about how I brought the term salty back. Like,
Yes.
like when I was in high school, we used it all the time. Then it died. And then I did the sociological experiment with my son, who's now, 20, 27. When he was in high school, I'm like, dude, I want to bring salty back. So I'm like, let's just start using it out in, in public. Like you start using it at school, and sure as shit, man, came back full speed. And I'm taking credit for it. I don't give a shit what anybody says. That's it. It's in stone.
Wasn't he?
Yes.
Sobbing.
Yes.
And you noted that it was his son that was not upset. His son was, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but would you say his son was reserved?
Yes.
Quiet.
Thanks,
Yes.
Charlotte.
And in the FBI report, you mentioned that you think that maybe his son was in shock. Remember that?
Yes.
Okay. And it's still your assessment at this point that at the time you felt that his son Garth was in shock.
Allie just pats me on the head.
Is that right?
I know
Yes.
you did, honey.
Okay.
I know you did. It's like, thanks,
You went
babe.
over to the nightstand, and on Tammy's side of the bed, you found the essential oils, right?
The book.
The what?
The book
The book.
of essential oils of natural.
Did you see any? I would represent you that Officer Greenall testified that she found a number of items in the bedroom. And you also saw cough medicine on Tammy's side. Is that right?
I don't recall the cough medicine being in the bedroom.
Okay. What about the medication for strike? What about the medication for bruises that she had that was in the bedroom as well? Do you recall that?
No.
Okay. But if Officer Greenall was there, right?
Yes, she
And
was.
detailed that in her report, correct? Correct?
I don't recall.
Okay. Would it help you to review Officer Greenall's report?
Yes.
Judge, if I could just have a moment.
You may.
Okay.
This is interesting because you talk about this all the time, Bob. Like the prosecutors can go over to the table and be like, hey, did I get everything? He's got to like
And
figure
Judge, I think while I'm waiting for this to
Oh, he's waiting
load,
for something to load. Never
I'll
mind.
continue with some questions so we don't waste any time. If it loads.
By the way,
So back to I think where we left off is that Garth was, in your opinion, was in shock at the death of his mother, correct?
Correct.
And Chad Daybell, throughout this episode of being there with Tammy, for the most part, was sobbing and was highly emotional almost the entire time. Is that fair?
Yes.
There was no instance where you saw that he was faking it or trying to pretend to be upset. This was a genuine situation where you truly believed he was upset about the death of his wife. Is that right?
Objection, speculation, Your Honor.
Overruled.
You can answer.
Yes.
Now, I appreciate you talking about it, and you mentioned it in the report.
Page on Bob's channel. I see your question about witnesses. I saved it and I'll have Bob comment on it when we get to a break.
That at no time Did the family ever try to prevent you from doing an autopsy in this case? Is that right?
Emma stated she didn't want one done, but
Okay.
it's my choice, ultimately my
Right.
choice. Yes,
Emma didn't want one done because she didn't want her mother cut up, right?
correct. Yes,
She didn't want her mother subjected to she didn't want her mother treated that way as part of the examination. Is that what her primary and only concern was?
yes,
Okay. And yet Chad was indifferent one way or the other. He didn't tell you one way or the other whether he wanted one or didn't want one. Isn't that true?
yes,
And ultimately, it's not the family's decision whether this occurs. It's your decision whether this occurs. Is that right?
yes,
And based on the facts as you saw them, you saw some old bruises that you identified in your report, right? Correct?
bruises.
There were no other indications of a struggle or a fight as it related to Tammy Daybell's body. Is that right?
No, not that I noticed. No,
Okay. No other indication right up to the time you dropped her off at the morgue that there was any problem with Tammy's body in any way, correct?
explain problem.
Well, you didn't see anything as part of the when you arrived to the time that you loaded her up and took her off to the morgue, there was never anything during that process that would indicate there was anything wrong with Tammy Daybell's body, right?
I don't know what you're asking me.
Okay.
I can't answer that question.
Okay, how about this? There's nothing suspicious that you noted other than the lapidity and the old bruises that you put in your medical report, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Judge, at this point, I've got the report of his Officer Greenow. With the court's permission, I could give it to the bailiff. He could take it to her and she could scroll through. I think that would protect in terms of being able to refresh her recollection about the report, if that's acceptable to the court.
All right, I'll let the prosecutor take a look at that first before it goes to the witness to make sure it's appropriately identified.
All right, folks, raise your hand. How many of you have stopped paying attention and are just thinking of old words
See?
since Bob brought up salty and twerp? By the way, we have 775 people. Thank you so much for being here, everybody.
I think it's safe to say everyone. It makes for a great chat. And then he keeps saying,
Mr. Pryor, we've got that report
Yeah.
also. We get it as an exhibit, if that's
I
easier.
was also, maybe I missed it, but I didn't have that marked down. And if the court wants to, I don't, either way, Judge, either we can.
I'd prefer the exhibit to your computer.
All right.
8.
Electronics. Thank you.
Oh, there it is. Wait.
When it comes to electronics,
oh,
it doesn't work that way. I'm an idiot when it comes to electronics.
I don't understand your modern world. I don't know.
Oh, thank you.
What does this machine do?
And ma'am, after you've had a chance to review that, would you look up and then just hand that back to the bailiff?
Bob, has your by the way, first of all, I keep forgetting to ask you off when we sign off who the person is, but has your boots on the ground who doesn't want to be named, have they been back or are they just what?
I don't think she's been in. I know she was she had to fly out to California.
Okay.
So I think like through the weekend, I think she'll be back for sure. We'll probably have moved on.
I'm just curious to see how they're reacting, like if they're still like giving them dirty looks.
But I'm still gonna give like
I don't have a problem
while
with
we're
that. And if
doing
you want
lead,
to-
we can certainly give like bombshell updates, like if, as we're getting.
Yeah, that's all. That'll be great.
You want to read over the up and down thing, and you can start.
These idiots are trying to figure this out. By the way, if you guys aren't
Okay, in her
Get it back to the bailiff and judge.
that Reed case it's going to start on Monday. It looks like for sure. Buckle up, folks. I mean, I don't know if you guys know this YouTuber JLR. He is now there. He is like he confronted Karen Reed getting out of her car. There's video of him like just screaming at her going into the courtroom.
What happened to the buffer zone? The buffer zone. The buffer zone. Let's all abide by the buffer zone.
Because he like went all the way to wherever they park.
Yeah.
Like he's not even in the buffer zone. She's literally getting out of the car. He's yelling at her. and then there's Karen Reed people who are like trying to block him, and then Turtle Boy. I mean, this is just, I've never seen anything like this.
It's
Exhibit
crazy. It's
418,
crazy. And
Council's
that dude
reviewing.
likes to inject himself into shit.
Right.
He sure does. You said this morning off camera, like he was a Murdoch trying to like
Yeah, he was like leaning in.
get into the camera view. Oof.
Judge, we may have to have a sidebar just very briefly. With that.
Sidebar.
Sidebar.
All right, good. We have a couple questions. I want to add T from Criminality, who I adore and love her channel. So if you guys have not subbed to T's channel, Criminality, she's a homie, and
Check it out, folks.
She's the truth. If we can throw her link up in our chat, I would love that. I don't know. We don't know. We don't know, T. We don't know why he keeps saying lapidity. I'm assuming he means lividity. You know,
Yes,
I mean,
it's because
like,
he's dumb.
right.
he definitely he missed. Yeah, he's definitely he's supposed to be saying lividity, and he is not doing
exactly. And then Brianna Burney had asked Bob, why do lawyers address only the judge and not each other directly? Because we're not allowed to. Like when it gets heated, like Alice and I would always, you know, we'd start arguing back and forth with the prosecutor, and the judge would get very upset. You know, counsel, do not address each other, address me. You know, so it's the rules of the court. You know, we don't address each other. We speak through the judge. We make our points to the judge. They can hear the argument, you know, so it's just all decorum. You know, and it's beyond frowned upon. It's really not allowed. You're not supposed to address one another in terms of the state and the defense during a case, because it gets, you know, as you can imagine, it turns into an argument with two people arguing. That's why you go through the arbiter up there on the bench. That's the main reason for it, because just like, and you can imagine where passions are running high, like they do in every trial. You know, if you start, hullabaloo, good one, Blair. That's a good, the tomfoolery, shenanigans, hullabaloo. That's that classic scene from Good Will Hunting when he's in with the one guy, the one psychiatrist, and he's talking about being at the club. He's like, you know, you could just feel the beat. Poof, 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 poof. Like that movie. Jay, how many times do you watch Good Will Hunting?
Several. It's an all-time classic. If it's one of those ones where, much like Shawshank, or you know,
no matter where
if it comes on AMC, wherever you're watching, whatever channel it is,
you're in.
Oh, did you see this question, by the way? I meant to bring this. Paige Miller said, and we've talked about this before, but can you all explain what the strategy for the witnesses is? Is there a strategy just based on availability?
It's typically a combination of both. I mean, certainly when you go into your case in chief, you've got an idea of, especially depending on how difficult the story is to tell, because remember, like a jury in theory knows nothing about a case. So you want to try to run it chronologically if possible, depending on how convoluted the story is. Like this story has twists and turns like you wouldn't believe, you know, I mean, and it spans, you know, years, and it takes place in different states. There's characters that this jury, you know, and like the thing about this is they talk about Alex and Lori and these other characters like on first name basis, as if this jury knows who the fuck these people are. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, they talk about an Alex Cox early on, and they're expecting the jury to remember and remember who all the characters are. And there's so many characters in this. And I'm using characters in a generic term, but, you know, I mean, you've got the Melanies, you know, Melanie Gibb, and then Melanie Boudreaux, you got Brandon, you got Colby, you got Alex, you got Lori, you got Zulema, who we haven't even seen yet. You've got David Warwick, you've got like all these different characters. So, and then you have to obviously factor in the toughest in terms of witnesses are typically your experts, because you're really beholden.
All right. So after a sidebar, we've determined we do need to take a little bit of time to get an exhibit prepared, which we're working on at this time. And we will take the mid-morning recess to allow that to occur while we're on break. So we'll take our break here, plan on a 30-minute break to come back on at 10:15.
Oh my God, he gave the time. He gave the time, folks.
JLR tragedy pimp. Yeah, that's a pretty good description there.
I mean,
Daybell.
the interesting thing to me about, first of all, if you guys, I don't know if you guys saw, but they had made a motion. I believe it was the defense made a motion where they were worried about the room because like the jury couldn't see the witness or something like that. And from what I saw today, they may be putting the case in. The judge said she might put it in a smaller courtroom. I mean, if you guys have seen like some of the pretrial hearings, the gallery was like cheering, like it was insane. So I'm very curious to see when I'm sure the judge is going to have and at towards the end of the hearings, there were like 10 like court officers and bailiffs in there, like making sure no one gets out of line. But just the whole dynamic is going to be.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And so if people don't know what you're talking about, Jay, that the defense had filed a motion regarding where the jury box or the witness box is in relation to the jury box. And it does appear, and now, of course, I've seen people saying, that the defense posted a picture that is not in any way reflective of how it's really set up. But, it appeared from the picture the defense posted with their motion or attached to their motion, it does appear that with certain jurors that they would not be able to see the witness's face, that they're kind of sitting behind, almost like kitty corner to the witness box, which is a problem.
Absolutely.
I mean?
Like we just us watching trials, watching witnesses, a lot of it is body language. If
Totally, which is what we're missing in this trial. Like we cannot see any of these witnesses. We have no idea what facial expressions they're making. It's like, and you can feel it here in particular, how much we miss that.
Yeah,
it's like it's great to be able to read body language, and if somebody's getting emotional, oh, they're full of shit, that's fake crying, like the whole snot face Murdoch shit thing.
Yeah,
no tears, but all kinds of bugs coming out, but you want to be, and frankly, it's one of the ways that you judge a witness's credibility. That was like when the pandemic hit and Zoom became a thing, which Zoom did not exist in terms of court of laws prior to the pandemic. That is 100% absolutely born out of the pandemic. And it was clear. I was like, look, for status hearings, which are a bulk of the hearings leading up to a trial, I'm like, I love Zoom because like I don't need to spend, like 2 hours of my day traveling back and forth to court for a 15-minute status hearing. It saves client money. It saves us time, it saves the court time. But in terms of like any kind of actual hearing where there's going to be witnesses on the stand, like I'm like, no way. Like you can't have a witness who could have somebody standing right beyond their computer screen with like index cards of shit that they want to say. Like you have to be able to look at them with your own eyes, because that all goes into play in terms of the credibility of the witness. You're using everything at your disposal to try to figure out, is this person full of shit? Is this person telling the truth? It's like never a true word. He uses words to do it, and like you're incorporating that along with everything else to try to sniff out. It's like, look at how many times you do it with Wendy. Imagine if like you couldn't look at her.
Yeah,
she's saying the words, it's like the little tells, the little things that people do, rubbing the back of their neck, scratching their nose, pulling their ear, all the little things that can indicate that people are not being honest. So yeah.
Let me see what I have. I'm trying to find the quote I have from the guy I was following. He said that what did the judge say? The judge no, that's the sidebar. The judge says it's her firm conviction that the current layout of the jury box is legal, but says she will consider moving to a smaller courtroom. Says there would only be room for press plus victims and defendants' families. I mean, that might be
wow.
No gallery.
Wow. I mean, like she's kind enough to be streaming it, unlike Delphi,
right?
Which like both of those trials should be streamed.
All trials, right? I mean, that's the whole. It's
every trial. It's like if you've got the ability to do it, why wouldn't you do it? It's like it's total transparency, which is what we want. It's the entire point of trials being public, is for transparency, and so that we can hold the government accountable. We need to know what they're doing. We need to know that they're not pulling all kinds of shit in order just to get convictions, because there is a distinct mandate with any prosecutor's office that they get convictions. So it's like we got to keep an eye on that. We got to keep an eye on that, and that's obviously one of the primary functions of defense attorneys, to make sure that the cops and the state are doing their job properly. And if they do, then we're in good shape. But there's just way too many times where they don't, and they get caught. And that's why we want transparency in courtrooms, frankly.
Yeah, I can show you. And I've been looking at this guy, and Lauren just tagged me too. And this guy David, who's I'll show you. He did a video of the room that they potentially could get switched to, and I'll share that now. Let's go to share screen. Let's go to.
So they're going through jurors this morning, right? Like,
yep,
we're back to the process. Oh boy, that's teeny. Oh my, 2 pews. Family, that's it.
be interesting. So yeah, let's see what he says. I can go back to his tweets and see what his latest on. Oh no, shit, that's not what I want. Let me get.
Brianna didn't hear my answer. No, it's like we're not allowed to speak to one another. We speak through the judge. Like it's really for just keeping the decorum. Criminal cases are way too heated for the lawyers to be addressing one another. We speak to each other through the judge, through argument. And that's really the entire purpose of having a judge up there. They're the gatekeeper of evidence that's coming in. And they keep control of the trial. So they're like, you'd not believe how many times Alice and I have been admonished by the judge and the prosecutor when we start going at each other. So it's like, it's rough.
Here's the latest. This is about an hour ago. The new jury pool was sworn in. The court clerk tells Reed that she can challenge 16 jurors without reason. These are known as preemptory challenges. We don't know how many of these challenges the defenses are.
Wait. So the new jury pool. So she's talking about the veneer,
right? Like the big.
This is like, is this guy a lawyer, or is he just a reporter? See, reporters like fuck up phrases all the time, and it drives me nuts. So like the veneer is like is technically the pool. So they get a new like set of people that come in. So how many are they bringing in there today? Because theoretically they only have one, right? Like one juror left to impanel, and then they're right back down to 16.
Day 5, 19 jurors seated, but judges aiming to have 12 and 4 alternates.
Judge says it's their firm conviction that the current layout of the jury box is legal, but so she'll consider moving it. Boy, the public's not going to like that. I mean, if they're streaming it,
the judge and attorneys are now meeting in sidebar, so we can't hear what they're saying, but it appears they're calling previously picked jurors to re-question them. Meanwhile, the new jury pool waits all right. Yeah, that's all I have so far, folks. If we see anything else, we'll definitely let you know. Let me see if there's. I'm not gonna fix this fucking.
So, Aaron, they've got. I don't know if you just saw what Jay put up. They've got 19 out of 20, which is then going to get sliced back down to 16 because there's concerns about some of the people that were in there. Whoa, Stacy. Fight for your right to party is like you are talking to like still, even in my advanced age, a massive Beastie Boys fan. They're still probably my favorite band. They were so influential on me in my life, like in terms of like, because that album License to Ill dropped when I was like turning 17, and like we would literally carry the album with us to all the house parties we'd go to. And
is that how you'd walk with it, Bob?
Yeah, exactly. walking around, or having it on my arm, or put it up on my shoulder like the old boom boxes.
Those were the days.
No, Paul's Boutique is probably one of the best albums that's ever been made, and it changed the entire game as far as hip hop and rap in terms of sampling. The sampling in that was like unbelievable.
Does that one have Car Thief? That's one of my favorite of theirs.
Yes.
Car Thief. Such a good song. And then all of a sudden, they come out with that Sabotage video, and I just remember watching that on MTV and it just blowing my. They play instruments now, like they're playing instruments, and that video with like the cops from like the 70s, it blew my fucking mind.
Great, dude. Well, yeah, because like for Check Your Head, which was that album, they had because they started out as a punk band, 3 nice Jewish kids from the boroughs, from and they like started off as a punk band, and then like Rick Rubin ran into them, and and they could spit, they could write some lyrics, and then Rick Rubin put together like just amazing beats, like with great samples. Like you have so many classic rock samples on License to Ill, like the first, like I had always loved Led Zeppelin growing up, and like When the Levee Breaks is like one of my favorite Zeppelin songs. It's like a 10-minute just fucking power jam, and it's like, but John Bonham's drum beat on that is unmistakable. So when Ryman, and like first time I heard Ryman and Steelin', which is
a great song,
pirate song, it's like you hear like it opens with Bonham's like drum beat from when the levee breaks. I'm like, oh my god, and it's just like the sampling on that was so good. And then people that loved License to Ill when Paul's Boutique dropped, it was so different. And it was so much more advanced that like people are like, what is this shit? Like they wanted more of kind of just like the classic rock samplings and like the heavy beats and kind of the frat boy shit. And then they changed the game completely. Now, obviously, Paul's Boutique is recognized as one of the greatest albums of all time. Now, Missy, I'm 100% with you. It's like I still listen to Paul's Boutique like once a week.
You know what? I love that they opened for freaking Madonna. Like at some point, like they
got
for
booed
Madonna.
off stage.
Can you imagine these young girls want to see Madonna, and the Beastie Boys come out?
These frat boys come out like flat, sloshing beer everywhere and grabbing their crotches, and it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Yeah, man, the Beasties. It's like for me, it was like the Beasties. Oh yeah. Black Dog. Like that's what I'm saying. They had so many classic rock samples. Like if you go to, like, you can always like look up what samples like are used. Like that's why I love the Meters so much, which is a classic funk band. If you look at like the most sampled bands of all time, like the Meters, which if y'all don't know who the Meters are, fix your life and go to Spotify and listen to Rejuvenation by the Meters. From front to back, it's an album. To me, it's my favorite album of all time, and I'm super excited. They're actually doing at Jazz Fest this year. Ivan Neville, who is a cousin of the lead singer who's now passed from the Meters, they're doing and like just a bunch of amazing New Orleans artists are doing the 50-year tribute to Rejuvenation. Which to me, if y'all have never listened to Rejuvenation by the Meters, check it out. You'll thank me. I promise.
By the way, if you're coming in late, folks, we're just on a break till about 12:15, the morning break. They're setting up exhibits. And Bob, by the way, speaking of lead singers that passed and people who like cover for them, did you happen to see the clip of Sublime at, I think it was Coachella, and his son is now singing and he sounds just like him? I was like, oh man, this
amazing.
Is so cool.
Yeah, don't get Allie on a Sublime rip. She will bust out Santeria from like every lyric like in stone. Like she can crush some Sublime. Allie's awesome. Sublime. I love Sublime too, but like Allie's Sublime was like the Beasties to me. Like I could go do a karaoke of any Beasties song up until like probably Intergalactic and like not need to look at the screen and just bust the rhyme. You know what I mean? And like Paul's Boutique, it's a tough one. I mean, lyrically, they're I mean, if you listen to the song "Sounds of Science," man, it's like it's such a like a bizarre, amazing song, man. Or "Root Down," oh, dude, like that like
That's a good one. I like that.
they
one.
have so many amazing songs. I love them. Oh, I love Fleetwood Mac too. Pokemon. Like that was me growing up in the 70s. Like, I mean, who has a more amazing voice than Stevie Nicks? Like Gold Dust Woman, like that. Like, there's so many songs by Fleetwood Mac that I just like adore. Like The Chain, I could
Chain,
still
yeah.
like, dude, The Chain. You kidding me? Like, there's so many songs that are great, but I like the Bee Gees. Still, like I love, like, to me, you know, there's some Bee Gees songs that are next level, which is odd because a lot of people like the disco is what supplanted the funk. So, because like the funk hit like in the late 60s, like 69 through 70, 71, 72, and then disco came in and people were like either loved or hated disco, you know. And as a general proposition, like nothing for me beats the funk. Like Allie and I are huge funk fans. That's why we go to Jazz Fest every year. It's like so much funk. It's like you guys will see, like if you pay attention, I wear a lot of funk shirts.
Here's a question about the case, Bob. Shelley
Oh.
has.
Let's see what we got.
If Pryor did serve Melanie Gibbs, does she have to show for the defense, please?
She does. I mean, unless she wants to get hit with the rule to show cause, which is, you know, that she's in contempt of court. Yeah, the subpoena power of the court, you do not have an option. If you get served, you're required to appear. If not, the judge will issue a bench warrant and drag your ass in there. So if she got her served, she'll have to show.
So, this is a good comment. So glad Melanie Gibb is no relation to Barry and Andy Gibb.
Me too. That would be heartbreaking.
So yeah, folks, we're waiting about 10 minutes here. Gonna get an update, and if you missed it, we have the coroner on the stand. That's where for Tammy Daybell, the coroner, which is so interesting. That's an elected position. She only had like 6 days experience or something. Well, you guys tell me. Like she was very new, very clear. She was new to the case.
Jive talking, yeah, underachiever. Sorry, Jay.
That's all right. That's all right.
I'm into the music shit here now. Tom Petty, classic.
Oh, Tom Petty. Oh,
we saw
yes.
Tom Petty the year that he died. We had done Mountain Jam, which is a festival that was up at Hunter Mountain in your neck of the woods, in New York State. And we would bring Cameron. Like Cameron was like 11 or 12. And we would go with a couple other families. They would bring their kids. We'd rent a condo. And it was like a cool way to introduce the kids to, you know, kind of like a festival scene that was like super low key, you know, and it was beautiful. And they just had 2 stages. It wasn't overwhelming. And so Petty, the year that he died, we got to see him. And like Cameron got to see him. And it was like just an amazing, amazing performance. You gotta love Petty, man. Creedence.
I tweeted this out. In my opinion, and I'm probably gonna get this, might be a little controversial. In my opinion, John Fogerty, greater sign, Mick Jagger. In my opinion, I love John Fogerty.
I do too. I mean, they're vastly different. Like lyrically, I don't disagree. You know, like I think like the Stones are, you know, the parts are, whatever that saying is, are better than the sum of the total. Whatever. The total is better than the sum of the parts. You know, like the Stones are great because the whole band's great. Whereas with Creedence, you know, like Fogerty was really the animal that drove that beast. Yeah. I mean, dude,
that's a good point.
Like I love Creedence, man. And you know who else did? The dude.
The dude.
The dude loved it. He's like, it wouldn't hold your breath on that Creedence, though, buddy. He had the old 8-track.
That's true. Someone just said something about the White Stripes. They are one of my all-time. There it is. I love the White Stripes. And I will submit to you, Bob. I've thought about. I wanted to tweet it out. Can you think of? Everyone think about this, because this happens in pretty much every sporting event around the world. People have now
Seven Nation Army.
They do the riff. They sing the riff. Can you think of a greater riff? I mean,
no,
you could
like
possibly
the dopest shit ever.
Like people literally just like it's a whirlwind. And they now they chant it. It's wild.
Yeah,
It has
dude,
to
like,
be, if not the greatest riff of all time. Top, like, you know, there's
100%.
satisfaction, obviously, but I mean, for people to in sporting events sing that
They
riff,
know it's an anthem. It's an
Yeah.
absolute anthem. Like, yeah, no question, dude. It's like when that song came out, I was like, oh my, yeah, yeah, you know, because I'm like, I love the rhythm section. I love the drums, the bass. You know, I love that boom, 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 and then you know, Jack White's voice is just so perfect because he comes in, he's got that higher pitched, like that higher pitched voice. Like, I love everything that he's done. I love all of his solo shit, all of his side
the Rankin
projects.
Tours.
So
What else?
good, dude.
So, yeah, I actually, for an introvert and someone who has not gone to I went to the city to what's that famous in Brooklyn? There's a famous small like event, and he just blew my fucking mind. Brandy Sharper with a $10 cash app. Thank you so much, Brand.
Oh, Bob Seger, 100%. Like, I was on like a weird Bob Seger thing, like 4 months ago. Like, I was like, oh man, like, I really want to dig into some Seger. Like, Bob Seger had some great shit, man, and a great voice. He's just like a straight up like rock and roll dude. You know,
Yes.
it's like he's great.
I'm gonna try something. This is the first time I try. So my freaking camera turned off. I'm gonna try something. I'm gonna refresh. I don't think it's gonna turn off this live because I
Dead Weather, yes,
yesterday,
yes, Mandy Bo Bandy, like that Dead Weather. They had like on that particular when we first bought this house and that Dead Weather had dropped. I would be on the riding lawnmower listening to that Dead Weather album, which is another Jack White project.
I assume I'm off the screen right now, Bob. You can't see me.
I can see you.
Oh, I'm on. I'm back on. It works.
You're frozen though.
No, it's because it's my other camera. All right.
Oh.
So here we go, folks. Hopefully this doesn't restart the stream. It shouldn't. Here we go. Let's see what happens.
Hi, kids. It's just me. Oh, you're back. It worked. You're on.
Yay!
Look at you.
Do that, but
hey, if you're dropping in, Jay and I aren't acting a fool, ignoring the trial. Here they are trying to figure out some logistics with an exhibit, and then they slipped into their break. So as soon as that trial comes back on, we will go back into live action. But in the meantime, let's talk music. You know.
Yeah, what do you guys got? What do you guys
Fun pop. Oh, it's coming. So the baby shower for our grandchild is this weekend, J-Bo. So we got a bunch of East Coasters flying in, dude. Yeah, the due date's May 18th, man. It's coming. It's coming.
Holy shit.
So my daughter-in-law has made a mandate that she's not allowing anybody to come to the hospital to visit when the baby's
born. Yeah,
everybody has to wait until she gets back home. Everybody's like, I'm like, it's her choice. I get it. It's like you're trying to like who am I to ever talk shit about like a woman that's just given birth? Like as men, we have no concept of the amount of pain that women suffer through in order to give birth to a child. Like, I have no place to talk about shit about any. If she wants to be able to bond with the baby and recover, I'm all about it. And I
don't know, Bob. I've had a pretty bad stomach ache sometimes, and I assume it's pretty similar.
Yeah,
I don't know what
you've been very, very constipated before, so I can relate. You know.
Yeah.
Don't come for me. It's a fucking joke. Relax.
Yeah.
So it should be for about 5 minutes. We'll be back. But that's so cool, Bob. But wait a second. May 18th. Aren't you going to be in
Delphi? Yeah. I mean, and I don't know what she's going to do. Like, so that particular courtroom holds, I think, about 80, maybe 85 people. And I'm imagining she is going to, no, Claire, I'm going with Fun Pa. Don't judge me because I don't care. It's like Fun Pa is my shit. That's it. It's in stone. People have been trying to talk me out of it for the Spitfire. I think she's going to go with Mum, spelled MOMMOM. But like, that's what her mom is to our kids. Mum's cute. She was going to go with Mimi. And then, you know, she was trying to like fight me on Fun Pa. I'm going to go with Love Ma. I'm like, that's awesome. Go with Love Ma. She's like, fuck that.
God, I hate that. Like, I just don't want you to be Fun Pa.
I'm like, dude, Fun Pa's amazing. She's like, don't you understand? They're not going to be able to say the M, so you're going to be Fupa. I'm like, oh God, like every argument.
That is a problem. That's something to think about.
You know what, man? I'm here for it. I'm here for it. It's like when somebody sees, like when I see the first Fun Pa greeting card, I will feel that I have won the game, man. Because it's like I'm just gonna I'm doing it because I am gonna be Fun Pa. That's what I'm gonna be. I'm gonna be I don't have to be the bad guy anymore. You know, like I'm the heavy with the kids. Like I'm the no guy. I'm like, oh, did you do your chores? Did you do your homework? I'm that guy. And you know, it's like with my grandkids, I get to be just all fun all day.
Much like Salty Bob, you are a pioneer. You're an innovator. You're bringing it out of.
Thank you for recognizing that. Bob, I am definitely leaning into Fun Pa. It's my thing. She's like, it's like a ripoff of Funkle. I'm like, is it? I mean, I get like maybe, I don't know. I'm like, I've never heard anybody use it, so you know, I've co-opted the concept, maybe, but
of all your impressions, I think your impression of Allie may be my
yeah, she loves it. It's her favorite too, Shay.
By the way, folks, just if you're new to this, you might be new this week to our streams. We are going to on Monday. Karen Reed looks like it's going to start. Me and Bob are going to cover that, but don't you worry because our wonderful wives, Shannon and Allie, are going to give you guys the highlights at night, certain nights of the week. You don't have to watch all the boring stuff. They're going to give you the goods. We'll timestamp it. And you can just we'll keep you updated on this case as well.
They'll pick out all the tasty bits. Like, you know, it's like you're going to get the cliff note, you know, so you're only getting like the stuff that you really need to see. And it'll be great. It'll be great. So we'll have you covered, y'all. We are not abandoning you guys with the Daybell trial. It's like I was telling Jay yesterday, it's like going into it, I'm like, it's just going to be so much more of the same, but it's not really. And now I'm fascinated to see what the state's going to do to bring this thing home. You know, it's like, it's got to be coming. Like they're putting this witness on, and this witness is not helpful to the state.
No, it really,
you know, but like she's necessary, you know, and there is that concept of fronting issues that, you know, hurt your case so that you are in control of the narrative of it. You know what I mean? Like we do it all the time. Like we do it. Like if our client has a record and we know they're going to testify, we'll have them bring it out on the stand before we let the state do it, where they're putting in the context of like what a horrible piece of shit this person is, and they're not going to have the opportunity to explain why something may have happened. You know what I mean? So you try to get in.
Doesn't look like you're hiding anything. You're the one. It's like Eminem in 8 Mile. He's telling all the shit about himself. Get it out there. So then when the other person bring it out, you're like, well, he already brought it up. Like, I already know about this. So you're not really. It's not an aha moment that, like, you know, they're. So.
Poor Ashley wants me to grow out my hair. I think it'll be rough in like 3 weeks. Like I couldn't even get like a rat's tail probably in 3 weeks.
I found out the other day, because I always forget until Steve and Publicly Buzz, by the way, get them to 10K. I always forget when he turns his head that he has a ponytail. He said yesterday it's down to his freaking butt. I didn't know his hair was that freaking long.
Who, Steve-O?
Yeah, Steve-O.
Really? I did not know he had a pony either.
Oh yeah, all the way down.
Makes me love him even more.
By the way, I wanted to. Are you going to the jury selection for Delphi?
I don't. So that's taking place in Allen County. All right. So that's taking place in her courtroom, and typically they don't allow the gallery in because that's where the veneer is sat. You know what I'm saying? Like they will have all of the, and that's going to be a big pool. You know what I'm saying? Like the veneer for that is going to be large. So, you know, like I think that they said that they sent out 400. It was either 400 or 600. I can't remember, jury questionnaires. So it's going to be a ton of people in there. So they may not allow the public in during that. So I'm thinking no. So because they're going to actually pick it up there. And then once the jury is impaneled and sworn in, at that point, they will sequester them in a hotel closer to Delphi because there's about 100 miles. So that, I mean, that's going to be an interesting, like, I don't like it. Like Karen Reed, they're trying the case in such a small area that everyone knows about it. Like it's a much, and it's kind of the same thing when you're dealing with like Chad's thing, like this is just a very small county up there. So it was very difficult to pick a jury. And like, I don't think they're going to have as hard of a time in Allen County to pick that jury just because it's much bigger and then they'll import it back. So like, I feel pretty secure that they're going to be able to get an unbiased jury selected.
So are they? Is this a good question? Are they sequestered the whole trial? Morgan M asks.
Oh, Dan let the cat out of the bag. Yeah, I'm in. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be. So I am. I was interviewed for the documentary, the Delphi documentary that's airing this Sunday.
Oh, nice.
On Court TV. Barb McDonald. It's her documentary, and she had done the Down the Hill documentary. And podcast, which were excellent. So yeah, I'm excited about that.
So what time is that? Sunday? What time? Do you know?
Let me see. She sent it to me, and I'll promote it. Like I couldn't really like. I thought she was telling me to keep a lid on it, but if Dan has started blabbing, then I think it's fair game. Let's see that. Join us for a premiere. Of course, she doesn't. Wait, let's see if it says what time. I'm watching the trailer because it doesn't just say the time.
Let me see if the old Barb has tweeted anything out.
Hiding in plain sight. He is either the unluckiest guy in the world or he was there. The Delphi murders. The case against Richard Allen.
8 Eastern, 7 Central. That's
nice. That's gonna be
TV.
Awesome.
Yeah, it'll be cool. It'll be cool.
Oh,
yeah, I did that. We did that when they had the double hearings. She had set up a space and she in a world. Yeah, I could definitely do the big guy voice. So she had rented a space for filming, and the day that they had the motion for contempt and the motion to dismiss, which is a big day in court, like we did it the day before because I got down there a day early. So it should be good. I'm sure it'll be well produced.
It's on Court TV for folks to ask. It's going to be on Court TV.
Yep. Let's see.
Emily, we are going to stream Karen Reed during the day, and then at night, our wonderful wives are going to give you guys updates on whatever went down. Not every day, but when they could do, I think whatever days they could do, we're going to timestamp the good stuff, and they'll give you the information up until Delphi, and then Bob is going to be going to Delphi, following that case for you guys because it's not streaming. So if you want the real freaking details, Bob is going to be working himself to death because he's going to have to go all day in there, take notes, and then come at night and try to give you guys, like we were talking about this, like it's going to be like if you're there all day and you're taking notes, how do you stream like that to a show that's not like 10 hours at night when you have to wake up again and go?
Dude, plus, are you trying to slip me into a deep depression? Is that what you're trying to do?
No, you've told me that. I'm like, how could I help you do it? But like I was like, how can I help Bob do? But like I don't. But there's no way because it's not like you can't have anything in the courtroom, so it's not like you can tweet during the day like people
right.
like other journalists on other cases.
Exactly. There's no like live tweeting. Like they're like, and she's crazy about phones in there. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm literally having to take notes, and you're like when you're trying to diligently observe a trial, it sucks having to write things because like I'm losing the ability to be able to watch the witness on the stand because I'm sitting there looking at my notepad, writing shit down the whole time. It's a bummer that she's not streaming it. Like it really is. Like I'm so disappointed. It's a real bummer. Grouchy Bob makes me laugh. I was hangry. I'm an old man. I get crabby.
If I don't eat, I get very crabby, Jay. I haven't eaten all day, goddammit!
You look like an egg.
Strong men also cry. Strong men also cry.
I was trying to find one for like an old man, but that's all I got.
Oh, thank you, Mama. Mama
Oh, looks like
Libro
you're back.
shared notes. I appreciate that. That's like, it's like the thing that's important to me is being accurate as to the legal shit that's going on. You know what I mean? It's like I'm less concerned with like every writing every single word down, and I'm trying
All
to
right, we
get
can have the
concepts
drop back, please.
if they're making their case. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's just different things.
You will bring the jury.
Over 800 people here. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We appreciate you. Look at his big head; doesn't even fit in the freaking screen.
He'll be crying himself to sleep
Big
tonight
head
on his
Todd
huge pillow.
and the monsters.
Well, that's a huge noggin. It's a virtual planetoid. Has its own weather system.
It's like an orange stuck on a toothpick.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Yes, Susan. Karen Reed will be streamed. Absolutely. And we'll be bringing it to you.
Love you back, Mama Kay. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we're back on the record. CR 2221-1623, State of Idaho versus Chad Guy Daybell. Completed our morning break. Maybe to help move things forward here, Mr. Pryor, I'll note that we have now Defendant's Exhibit 19, which is the entire report of Officer Greenhalgh, including attached photographs. And I believe that's been offered and will be admitted by stipulation. Is that your understanding?
It is, Judge, and that's 19. Is that right, Judge?
Yes. Mr. Wixom from the state, does the state stipulate to the admission of Exhibit 19, which is the entire report, including statements and photographs?
We do, Your Honor.
Okay, that'll be admitted then as a single exhibit. And you can proceed with your continuing cross, Mr. Pryor.
Now, Ms. Dye, as part of your, activities on the scene at Miss Daybell's death, you eventually went back and did a chart or a report as it related to this case. Do you recall that? And part of that is to do a body chart and identify things of significance on that body chart. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and you in fact did that. Did you recall that?
Yes.
If I were to provide you with a copy of the chart, would you recognize that chart? If I could have the bailiff approach the witness? Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Greeny, no audio from Delphi. It is.
Oh,
gonna
I'm sorry.
be
I thought I showed
stone
it to you.
cold
Okay.
silent out of that courtroom.
Mean that you can't answer it?
It's a bullshit question. It's impossible to answer.
Impossible, but
Dude, how gorgeous was Marisa Tomei in that movie?
And do you recognize
Oh,
those documents?
Such an
Are
amazing
those the
performance.
documents that you prepared after your examination of Tammy Daybell?
Yes.
And the date of those are 10/20 of 14, is that right?
Yes, that's the date the report was
Okay.
completed.
And those are true and accurate copies of what you prepared as a result of your examination of Tammy Daybell on the date of her death. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, Judge, I'm going to move for admission of defendant's exhibit, and I would like it to be marked E and F, Judge. I think it's consistent with A, B, and C.
E and F.
E and F, 89 E and F.
Yes, Pilola's
89
mom.
E and F.
Bob
Yes,
was able
Judge,
to
and
get
I think
the
that was how it
shoes.
was previously disclosed to the state on my exhibits.
Any objection to exhibits 89 E and F?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Defense exhibits 89 E and 89 F are admitted. And again, two separate exhibits there, Mr. Pryor. It's a body chart in that
Two body charts, Judge.
two body charts. Thank
Do you
you.
want to have that marked now, Judge, or how do you want to handle that?
I'll grab them. I'll grab them.
By the way, folks, I forgot to bring this up.
I'll have the clerk mark
For
that.
folks who
actually,
enjoyed my
so we keep it straight.
lives with Julia and Jack, I am going to have them back. For folks who don't know, Wendy Adelson did a podcast about, I think, 8 months after Dan Markel's murder, a creative writing podcast.
So to be clear, then, Mr. Pryor, the top there's
real quick.
There's 2 pages,
and it is something else. Let me tell you, Bob. Did you know about this? She does a podcast. I mean, it's so bizarre. She talks about like he's my late ex-husband, but that sounds like latex husband, so I don't say it. Anyway, Julia and Jack, we're going to schedule a time, and we're going to do a third Decoding Wendy on that
It's
episode.
got like some Corey Richins vibes, like
Yes.
the woman.
Yes, exactly. Great point, Bob. And Jack said after like the first 2 sentences of hearing her talk, he's like, I already have stuff. So look out for that.
That'll
folks.
be great.
just here, the top page you gave me will be E, and the bottom page will be F.
Yes, Judge.
Okay. You may.
You've had a chance to look at what's been marked Exhibit 89E and 89F. Is that correct?
Yes.
And based on the time that you spent at Mr. Daybell's residence observing Tammy, this is a true and accurate reflection of what you observed on that day, correct?
Correct.
And at this point, there's no changes that you would make or anything that you would modify in regards to this, correct?
Correct.
Okay, Judge, could I publish this?
Yes. There's a light on that device, Mr. Pryor, that'll help with the shadow.
Paul in the chat, will he say lapidity again?
Thank you. Okay. So on your, and let me know when you're ready, ma'am.
Mandy, that is
On your
exactly right.
left,
The Pizios are
when you're looking at the
incredibly
screen, and it's the face down figure, up on the arm, we have a term. What is that term?
Lividity.
And blood had gathered there. Is that right? That's what that means?
Yes.
Okay. And then a little further to the right on the same figure, there's another word what is that word?
Lividity.
And then to the left again on the same figure down near the lower part of the back, there's another word.
Lividity.
And then down on the legs, there's another term. What's that term?
Lividity.
So from what I
Hey,
gather
Pryor,
from
you
this,
taking
there
note
was
of how you
lividity
actually
on her
pronounce the
entire
word, you
body. Would that be
pinhead?
fair?
Yes.
Okay. So we weren't able with lividity, you aren't able to really make a determination.
You got
other
it,
than the
folks.
fact that she was
Got
laying
it.
flat at some point, right?
Amazing.
Yes.
Or she was laying on her front, one way or the other, right?
On her back.
Okay. So in your report, when you
Okay.
discussed this with the FBI, you had, based on all of your experience, you had said that the body had been dead for about 5 to 6 hours. Do you recall telling the FBI that?
Approximately, yes.
Okay, well, you said 5 to 6 hours, so that's what you testified to the FBI. Is that incorrect?
No.
Okay. So I guess the question is that Mr. Daybell mentioned that he was awoken by the fact that Tammy had slipped out of the bed when he pulled the covers. You recall that?
Yes.
And Tammy had fallen down and her head was on the floor and her leg was up on the bed. You recall that?
That's what I was told, yes.
Okay. So if Tammy had died in the bed and had passed away in the bed, this lividity would be consistent with her dying in bed on her back, right?
Yes.
And if she fell down, and that's what woke Mr. Daybell up, there wouldn't be lividity up in her head, would there?
No.
So when Mr. Daybell told you that he was awoken when he pulled the covers, rolled over, and Tammy slid off the bed, well, that's consistent with the lividity here. She was in bed. She died in bed. And when he pulled the covers, she slid off. So wouldn't his story be consistent with the lividity findings that she actually was in bed for 5 or 6 hours?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now I want to go over to the other side, and the one that's facing. And on that particular one, it says something about tinged foam. Could you read that for me?
Blood tinged foam.
Okay, and that's what you observed on her body was and we saw the pictures of the blood tinged foam in her mouth, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then further down on what would be her right arm, you put two words there. And what are those words?
Old bruising. Old bruising.
Okay, so old bruising. Now, you didn't put new bruising, did you?
No.
You didn't put any marks on anywhere else on her body, right?
No.
And as part of your investigation, you by statute are required to do a thorough investigation of the body. Is that right?
Yes.
And you did that day, didn't you?
Yes.
And what you came up with is that she had some foam in her mouth and there were some old bruises on her right arm. That's what you came up with, right?
Yes.
And you came up with nothing else on her body that showed any indication of any other trauma, marks?
No.
We could take that one down. I'm done with that. And Judge, at this time, I'm going to want to publish defense exhibit 19, I believe.
All right. Give me a moment.
19F, Judge, I'm sorry. And Judge, this is the one where counsel. Sorry. Just mark that whole thing.
All right, again, Mr. Pryor, the way we're admitting and have admitted Exhibit 19 is just a single exhibit. So you can reference photographs contained within 19. They're not going to be given separate designations. So 19F is not going to be an exhibit. So you'll have to refer to it by, I guess, page number, because that's the way it came in as one document. We're not going to have the sub-documents in 19. It's just one exhibit.
And Judge, unfortunately, there are not page numbers on these.
Okay, well,
I can identify it as.
You can describe it or count through the pages, but it's one single exhibit.
And Judge, this page number is a photo of Tammy Daybell's right arm showing some discoloration.
Okay, and we've got the original exhibit here that's getting processed. We'll get that over to you here shortly, and you can publish off that court's.
Judge, I've also got it on my screen. Could we do that by HDMI?
You could do that as well if that's a accurate.
So would you approach and look at this to see that it's a true and accurate? Same one, right? And Judge, counsel has acknowledged it's the same picture.
Okay, as long as it corresponds with the actual exhibit. Exhibit 19 is admitted. It's the paper document of the entire report with the pictures. If you want to select one of the pictures to publish, we'll do that. I understand this is also a photograph, death scene photograph. The court's not going to publish to the public. It's going to be published to the jurors and the parties only based on a graphic content.
Your Honor, may I have permission to stand here during this part of the cross-examination so I can have a vantage point for the screen?
You may.
All right, I have re-uploaded my sound effect for when someone talks too fast.
Slow down.
See, Pryor's going so hard at her because I think in Pryor's mind, the only case that he's
Oh,
really
it's up there.
concerned about them getting Chad on is Tammy's case. And in his mind, he thinks that this is his winning witness. That's why he's trying to just hammer home this point. Obviously, we can see the reaction of our chat to his demeanor. But again, this is an antagonistic witness for him. He's got to try to go at her hard. She's very meek in terms of her response. So he's coming off like a real bully. You know, like if I'm him, I'm reeling it in. He can still make the points that, look, this is the determination you made. Like you were the one that made these findings. You know what I mean? He can do it in a way that he's driving home that point. But for him, this is an absolutely critical witness, because I'm telling you, like, in terms of the evidence that they have, he's most concerned with Chad getting nailed on Tammy. I guarantee it.
And like you've talked about before, Bob, if you're him, either A, if this is you, you have Allie who will either take this witness, or Allie who looks at you and is like, calm down. He doesn't have that. He's by himself. He's just got to do it. So
I'm 100% having Allie take this witness, but Allie can get rough. Like if you
so you're the one who's got to tell Allie.
Yeah, I mean, like if you listen, like 2 episodes ago, we did the cross of the state's witness and Garcia, their expert, and Allie just like picked this dude apart, you know. And it's like a antagonistic cross-examination, because you're trying to make a point, but it was different because that was not in front of a jury. Like the jury is always the X factor. Like when when we're watching a pretrial hearing and I see the chat kind of going off on like the lawyer's demeanor when they're arguing where there's no jury present on a pretrial motion, that's just straight argument. Like you don't need to, like, as a lawyer, you're not worried about your demeanor in terms of how as a jury, how am I reflecting onto the jury in terms of are they going to hate me? Are they going to like me? You're not as concerned with that at all when you're just dealing with a judge who's making a ruling. So like, we're typically far more aggressive in our arguments when it's on pretrial motions than we are. But, I mean, like it says, it's a witness by witness thing, and it's that thing where like no lawyer's going in except for Pryor, because he doesn't have anybody to consult with, like we had a whole team on Garcia and we would talk for hours about, do we go aggressively at this witness? How do we treat this witness? Are we going in, gently? If it's a cop, like I had a war with their primary detective. It was like, it went on for hours and it was very aggressive on both of our parts, because we were arguing. Like he was saying one thing and I didn't think that he was able to prove it up. And, so I was aggressive. Like I could only imagine if that was televised, what the chat would be. They say, this fucking Bob guy's like such an asshole. This poor cop, he's so sweet and like he's kind of good looking, and what this Monica guy's a dog off. I can't stand it. It's like
Babe says Allie made mincemeat of that witness. I loved every second. I assume Babe probably listened to the podcast maybe on her flight. But
welcome home, Shans.
If you're again, Bob's podcast is the shit. A link tree. If you want to scan the code on the screen right there, you can get there, or we'll share the links. Make sure you are checking out the Defense Diaries podcast. That's where it's at, folks.
Magic.
We like it.
So, ma'am, you're looking at what's part of 19, Exhibit 19. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And the old bruises that you were talking about, are those reflected on the two what look to be discolored marks on Tammy Daybell's arm?
Yes.
And that's what you saw on that day, correct?
Yes.
And those are the old bruises that you talked about that you identified on her body on that day, correct?
Yes.
Okay, Judge, that's all I have at this point with this.
All right, so he's done.
All right.
Was that exhibit or that witness?
Oh, is he done with just that exhibit?
I think it was because that's why the guy was standing. Yeah.
I was going to say that would have been surprising to me. Yeah, no, I look, I think
you testified earlier,
but Pryor
used the words
very effective.
If I
Check it out,
don't
Amy, you
deem
won't
it
regret it.
necessary, if I don't deem it necessary that an autopsy is done, it's my decision alone to decide whether an autopsy is done, correct? your decision alone to decide whether an autopsy is done, correct?
It's ultimately my decision.
Right.
Yes.
And you looked at these old bruises that you identified, correct?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And you looked at the foam coming from the mouth, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I didn't see any other marks or any other indication of anything other than the lividity that you talked about, correct?
Correct.
And based on that, you then issued a death certificate, right?
Yes.
Now, before you issue a death certificate, you have an obligation, do you not? Before you issue and sign that death certificate? Are you aware of your obligation?
Yes.
Okay, and that obligation is that you want to attest, but when you put your signature down on that death certificate, you want to be sure that what you're signing is true and accurate to the best of your ability based on the information you have at the time of the death. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. And at that point, the death certificate, and Judge, I'm not going to publish Exhibit 20, but Exhibit 20 reflects that death certificate. You talked about pulmonary edema, and then there was another cause for this, right? Another reason why you cited her, two things that you cited as part of what you felt was her death, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you did talk to Chad, and he
Susie Q, we will forgive you if you download it right now.
We do.
talked
And
to you about the
remember,
fact that
the seasons 1 and 2 are scripted. They're very different than the docket. The docket is like typically Allie and I bantering and discussing cases. It's a completely different thing than like the Gacy season and the Garcia season. Those are all scripted. So they're completely different vibes.
Tammany vomited the night before, correct?
Yes.
And you had mentioned about the stomach. Was that stomach completely full?
No, not completely.
Right. And were you aware, when you were there, did you talk to Garth about the fact that he bought Tammy a quarter pounder and some French fries that night? Did you discuss that with Garth?
No.
Okay. But when you went through the autopsy, you found potatoes in her stomach, right?
I didn't identify it.
Okay.
I just saw the stomach contents.
Okay, but you weren't able to identify that there were potatoes in her stomach.
I didn't know what it was.
And you didn't identify the fact that there was any sight of a quarter pounder or anything like that, correct?
McDonald's mystery meat.
No.
Okay. So when you said that you found it unusual that her stomach was full, it wasn't really full. It just had contents in it. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. So we really don't know whether Tammy Daybell threw up that night other than the fact that Chad said she did. Right?
Right.
And when you showed up, Chad Daybell is sobbing, he's crying, and he's telling you how his wife threw up the night before, correct?
Yes.
Went to sleep, and she fell off the bed. And based on the lividity, his story is
Whoa, Bob! Oh, look at Jen coming in hot with a
Aw.
$50 lemon character and baby lemon jumping in the air with fireworks behind them.
Wait, is that a baby lemon? The baby lemon's blue, dude. Jen, you are so gracious.
I'm just
and
reading
so
the thing.
generous. Thank
Don't
you.
kill the messenger.
Thank you so much, Jen, for
consistent
everything.
with what
for
the
everything.
lividity findings you had, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you also had an opportunity to look at Officer Greenall's report, correct?
Yes.
And you saw that the number of medications that Tammy Daybell was taking, correct? Do I need to refresh your recollection with it again? Do you need to see it again?
I saw it.
You saw it? You sure?
Yes.
So on page 1 of Officer Greenall's report, and the comment was that they're on the table every morning and she takes them to help her. You recall seeing that in Officer Greenall's report?
Yes.
And you discussed that with Officer Greenall, right? You discussed what Tammy Daybell was taking as part of your investigation, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay, so you're aware that she was taking fluoxetine, thank you. Fluoxetine, which is Prozac.
Yes.
She was taking acetaminophen. She was taking ibuprofen, right? Vitality extracts, immunity energy, grapefruit, peppermint. I'm sorry, and I apologize. Vitality extracts for immunity, energy, grapefruit, and peppermint. You saw that as well, right? On the table, right?
I recall it was in the cupboard.
Right. You recall that was in the cupboard? That wasn't on the
kitchen.
table?
Not the bedside table, the kitchen cupboard.
Well, when Officer Greenhouse says, Chad showed me all of the over-counter medicines she takes, she said she has approximately 10 bottles on the table every morning. So would you be mistaken possibly that Officer Greenhouse must have made a mistake in her report, or do you just don't recall correctly?
Doesn't it say in her report, the cupboard?
Oh, it talks about what was in the cupboard and that there were other things in the cupboard in addition to these things. But Officer Greenhouse talks about this being on the table. You don't remember that?
There's a picture of those medications in the cupboard in the kitchen.
Okay. And then equate cough medicine, right?
Yes.
Essential oil respiratory blend, right?
Yes.
And then lastly, supplement for bruising and sore muscles. Remember that as well?
Yes.
And then there is a reference that most of what was in the cupboard were essential oils, natural remedies, and some pain medication. Okay?
Yes.
So this cupboard was full of a number of essential oils, right?
Yes.
This cupboard was full of natural remedies, correct?
Yes.
And this cupboard was included in all of these things as well. A lot of medicine that she was taking, right?
Natural. Yes.
And there's no doubt in your mind that Tammy Daybell was the one taking all of these medications, right?
That's what we were told. Yes.
Okay. And Chad talked to you about Tammy having minor fits and shaking consistent with fatigue, right?
Consistent with syncopal.
Minor fits.
Syncopal episodes.
She had.
Yeah, Mr. Pryor, please let her finish her answer before you get another question going.
You want me to restate?
Yes, please.
You were told that Tamara would have minor fits of shaking, which were consistent with seizures, correct?
Yes.
Now, when you have a seizure, you're aware that you don't need to have a heart condition or a problem with your organs in order to have a seizure, right?
It's in the brain.
Okay. But what in the brain is the seizure? It doesn't necessarily mean you have a sign of it in your brain, do you?
I'm not a doctor, so I don't.
Okay. But you made an assessment here based on what you said, and you signed a death certificate saying that this was something other than homicide or murder, didn't you?
Initially, yes.
Okay. And then her daughter Emma talked about her mother was trying to take clogging classes, but then in the last month or so wasn't able to keep up and was having some difficulty as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And there was some discussion that Chad was in the temple, and that's part of his faith. I guess we previously talked about a temple, and that's somewhere, I guess, where you practice your religious faith.
Yes.
And during that time while in the temple, she fainted while she was kneeling down, right?
Yes, when she went to stand up, yes.
Right. And there were other instances where she was having health issues and balance problems as well that were vaguely referenced in the report, right?
Yes.
Okay. So based on the fact that she had seizures, based on the fact that those bruises were nothing new or recent, there was nothing on her neck or face that indicated that she was smothered, choked, or anything like that. You made the determination that there was a medical reason for why she passed away, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, that all changed though, right?
Yes.
And then at some point, you received a call from some police officers in Arizona, right?
Yes.
And they said, hey, we got this situation with Lori Vallow, right?
Yes.
And we got another situation with Lori Vallow and Alex Cox related to the name Brandon Boudreaux, right?
Yes.
And the first situation was with Charles Vallow, right?
Yes.
Did that officer happen to tell you at that time that Chad Daybell isn't implicated or involved in any criminal proceeding against either of those folks? Was that told to you at that time?
Yes, Chad Daybell's name was mentioned with Lori Vallow.
Yeah, but did they happen to tell you that they're not pursuing any charges against Mr. Daybell at that point?
No.
Okay, so that was left out when they talked to you about looking into this thing, right?
Yes.
And then at that point, based on your previous observation of foam in the mouth, right?
Yes.
And the lividity, right?
Yes.
And what those police officers told you when you had your discussion with them, right?
Yes.
At that point, you decided maybe I need to look into this thing a little more, right?
Yes.
And at that point, you helped with the officers getting an order to exhume Tammy Daybell's body.
Yes.
Did you start an inquest per statute into this matter?
I can't answer that.
Well, you can, because did you start an inquest? You read the statute. If there's an allegation someone has been murdered, homicide, suicide, you have the option to start a public inquest.
Hold on before you answer. Grounds.
Counsel should not be interpreting the law at this point, and I don't know if she's able to draw the legal conclusion.
It's a yes or no question, but to the extent it's calling for any legal conclusion, it's sustained.
Okay, well, yes or no? Did you start an inquest?
No. No.
Instead, what you did is you started working with the police officers and the prosecuting attorney on it.
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
At this point, you then notified the police that you wanted her body dug up, right?
At that point, we were working with the FBI and
Okay.
police from different locations.
Oh,
Yes.
so the FBI was involved as well, right?
Yes. I
Okay.
believe so.
And at that point, there was an order to have Tammy's body removed from the ground, right?
Yes.
Now, as part of your your duties as a coroner, isn't it true that you're also supposed to notify families in regards to any death or suspicious death and let them know what's proceeding in these matters?
I believe that was done.
It was done?
I believe it was.
Do you know what family members they happened to mention that to, that they were digging their mother out of the ground?
I don't recall which ones. No.
Okay. And it was your duty to do that, so you don't recall your duty of having to notify them that they're digging their mother out of the ground. Right?
I work closely with the investigators
Okay.
through the sheriff's office, our detectives, and
And I didn't ask you about what you did with the investigators, ma'am. I asked you whether you told the family you were digging their mother out of the ground.
Oh,
No.
relax, Pryor. Shut your dumb face. I mean, now he's getting a little much. I don't know. Maybe Bob would disagree, but
Well, so the reason that he's using that
Was
that
there any other
ugly
reason?
terminology is to impact the jury so that they feel, because remember, if they don't know the story, if they don't know the whole sordid tale, then like exhume is not giving the jury the like just the harshness of the fact that they're just digging this poor woman up. You know what I mean? So it's like I can
get it, but if
see
they
how
already-
it can rub people the wrong way. But in terms of a jury that may not know the whole story, he wants that impact. Like that's not haphazard. Him
No, I know-
continuing to use that particular phrasing.
I totally get it. But I feel like if they already don't like him, like I don't like, I mean, but like, it's like we get it at a certain point. We like just, but I get why he's doing it. But I think they don't like him. I mean, we know they previously didn't like him, and
Yeah,
this
we'll
might-
see how it plays out, man. We'll see. We'll see. Because
Isn't it
I
looking
can definitely
for-
see both sides of it. 100%.
yeah, I get what you're saying.
For what a reason for why Tammy Daybell could have died other than what you said about the lividity or anything else? Was there any other suspicious circumstances you were looking for?
at the time of her death, no.
And at the time of digging her up, were you looking for something else?
Yes.
What were you looking for?
suspicious activity, anything that would result in homicide.
Okay. And that was after talking to the police. You were looking for information that would help maybe convince you to change your report to something other than natural causes. Is that right?
After several things happened, yes.
Well, I'm not talking about Brandon Boudreaux or Charles Vallow. We've already established what that's all about. I'm talking about the facts you had when Tammy Daybell was put in the ground. It was lividity, and that really was it, wasn't it?
No, I was told about her past health history,
Okay.
and that played into her cause of death, yes.
Did you happen to look at Teton medical report and see what her past medical history was?
I did review it.
Okay.
Yes.
So then you're well aware that Tammy Daybell had a history of anemia, right?
Past history, not current.
Right. Well, she wasn't being treated because she wouldn't go to the doctor for anemia. You didn't see any indication that she had been cured of anemia, right?
It just stated her past medical
Right.
history.
And based on your information, there's no indication in any single medical report that, amazingly, Tammy Daybell has been cured of her anemia, right?
No.
Okay. You also saw that she had a family history of heart disease and heart problems as well, right?
Family history, yes.
Yeah, family history, right?
Yes.
And you're also aware that Tammy Daybell had a difficulty with going and seeing doctors, correct? She didn't like to see doctors, did she?
Correct.
In fact, she relied on homeopathic essential oils and minerals to solve her medical maladies, right?
That's what I was told, yes.
Right. Okay. So based on the other information that you had about Tammy's history, you decided that even though there's anemia and there's a past history of heart disease and heart issues in the family, we were still going to dig her up, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Would you agree with me, ma'am? You were basically going on a fishing expedition looking for a reason to change.
Objection. Argumentative, Your Honor.
Sustained.
You were basically looking for some reason to dig Tammy up and try to come up with another cause of death, right?
Objection again. Argumentative, Your Honor.
Sustained. Ask a question, please, Mr. Pryor.
After she was dug up and you went into the and had the autopsy done, right? By the way, where was that autopsy done?
In Utah.
Where in Utah?
I don't recall exactly
Okay.
where we were.
But you were in Utah somewhere, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And Judge, if I could just have a minute.
You may.
That's all I have.
All right. Rebuttal.
All right, Mr. Wixom, redirect.
If I may, Your Honor.
Redirect, sorry.
Do you recall being, ma'am, do you recall being asked several questions about what your legal responsibilities are as a coroner by the defense counsel?
Yes.
Okay. With respect to your duty to perform an investigation, will you please recount what steps you took in your investigation originally at the time of death?
I asked for medical history for Tammy, looked for medications. We also looked in the bedroom, in the nightstand drawers, for anything that would be suspicious. And then Officer Greenhalgh and myself And Deputy Wilmore also spoke with two of our detectives. And Officer Greenhalgh was told just to take some good pictures and document well.
And in fact, pictures were taken. Is that correct?
Yes.
Were you present when those pictures were taken?
Yes.
Did you provide any instruction as a coroner as to what pictures to take or how to take them?
Yes.
Do you recall anything else you did as part of your investigation? Let me ask this. Did you attempt to talk to Garth about the circumstances of his mother's death?
I mostly just talked to Chad and Emma. At the time, Garth was just very quiet and just would nod when we would ask him questions or when Chad would respond. He was just really quiet.
And with respect to a number of the questions, you continued to tell the jury, that's what I was told. Do you remember responding in that manner?
Yes.
Yeah. Who was the person on scene that was primarily providing you with all the information that you were relying upon?
Chad Daybell.
And at the time, did Chad bring up any issues about his connection to Lori Vallow?
No.
Did he bring up Alex Cox's name?
No.
Did he bring up the attempted shooting of Brandon Boudreaux?
No.
Defense counsel made clear that you had estimated an approximate time of death, roughly 5 to 6 hours before you arrived on scene. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Likewise, you were asked questions about finding a number of supplements and other over-the-counter prescriptions on scene.
Yes.
Was it even possible for you to ascertain how long those items had been on scene before you got there?
No.
Did you get any other information from Chad to verify that in fact she was taking those supplements and they had been on scene prior to her passing?
I did not.
Do you think it's possible that someone else could have put those supplements on scene before you arrived?
They could have, yes.
You were asked about your duties to provide an accurate death certificate.
Yes.
And in fact, you did file an original death certificate and then a second amended certificate.
Yes, correct.
Why did you file the second amended certificate?
The results of the autopsy and 2 other dead children at the same residence.
What other dead children are you referring to?
JJ and Tylee.
Did Chad volunteer any information about those 2 at the time?
No.
When you filed the amended certificate, were you doing that as part of your duty as a coroner?
Yes, I was.
And explain that. Why? How is that a fulfillment of your duty?
That was the conclusion of the investigation.
You were asked several questions about the bruising that was observed on Tammy's arm.
Yes.
Do you have any qualification as you sit there today to determine the age of bruising?
It looked old to me, but I don't have the expertise.
And in fact, during the autopsy that you observed, did the ME provide any information about that?
Judge, I'm calling. Calls for medical conclusion, calls for hearsay, and there's a lack of foundation.
Sustained.
But as you sit there, do you have any reason to think you have the ability to say whether they were old bruises or fresh bruises, you personally?
Me personally, no.
You were asked some questions about your duty to inform family if you feel like there might need to be further investigation and an exhumation. Do you remember that question?
Yes.
And why didn't you do that?
I don't recall. I don't.
Do you remember what you told the defense attorney a few moments ago?
Our detectives and officers, I believe they informed the family.
So that was your understanding at the time?
That was my understanding, yes.
Were you ever given any information from law enforcement about how cooperative the family was during the course of the investigation?
Judge, objection.
I just asked this to be.
They're basing the response on hearsay, and the only way they get that is through hearsay, Judge.
Yeah, the question was she given information? It's eliciting hearsay. Mr. Wixom is sustained.
May I argue on that, Judge?
No, I made the ruling, so ask another question.
You indicated that while you were on scene, I think your words were that Chad was sobbing and crying.
Yes.
And is it fair to say that different people have different emotions when there is a grief situation? Were you able to observe or get any information about whether or not a few weeks later when Chad was marrying Lori Vallow, if he was
Judge,
crying or sobbing?
objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Is it fair to say that when you were asking these questions on scene about Tammy's health, that Garth didn't give you any information about her health?
Oh, he didn't? Only that he was sharing her fluoxetine prescription with his mom.
And again, you've already testified about the reasons for your change in the amended certificate.
Yes.
And that was based upon you being at the autopsy.
Judge asked and answered.
I'm just,
Overruled. Go ahead.
you already explained you attended the autopsy.
Yes, I did.
Is there anything else as you sit there today that you can explain to the jury that you learned from that autopsy experience that helped support your decision to change the death certificate?
The expertise of the medical examiner, and the investigation that was going on. Into other deaths and
Anything further? Anything else? Your Honor, I don't have any further questions.
Man.
Judge, there were some new subjects brought up about Alex Cox, Lori Vallow, as well as supplements on the scene and that when those arrived. I think I ought to be allowed to at least inquire on those two subjects.
On the supplements on the scene, I'll allow that. On the other topics, I think that was within the scope of cross. So just on that limited point made by redirect on the supplements, you can recross.
Boyce
Even the prosecution.
Boyce is so good. Like Boyce is paying attention, like to every single question that's asked. Like he's not one of those judges that's just like floating off, doodling on his pad. The dude, he's a great judge. He really is. I'm a huge fan of Boyce.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, man, even the prosecution has to be so frustrated with this witness. Like they're setting her up, and she still can't really answer. So I mean,
it's like you get witnesses like that who you prep as much as you can. And again, like in a case like this, where God knows how big their witness list is, you know, like typically the state will call you in, you know, and they'll try to prep you for like an hour, but you know, they're like trying to plow through it, and you can't do it 7 months, 8, like, because people are like, well, it took forever to get it. Like, you're talking about human beings. It has to be close in time relative to when the trial is, so that it sticks with the witnesses in terms of, and you're not telling them how to answer, but you're telling them these are the questions we're going to ask. Make sure that you review your report so that you're able to answer them with some kind of accuracy when you're on the stand. Like, yeah, she's been a terrible witness for the state, but like, I saw the response from our chats. Pryor just rubs people the wrong way. He comes off as a super aggressive, pompous airbag, and it drives people nuts. So, like, that balance of, like, is he making points? Well, is it being outweighed by the point that everybody thinks he's a total douchebag? You know what I mean? And it seems to me, if our chat is the jury, which I always consider it to be, that he's not doing well. Like, he's making great points, he's winning points, but then he's losing them because he can't reel his emotions in. Like, and I have to be honest, I was guilty of that too. Like, you really need to be able to try to keep your emotions in check, because it's more effective on cross-examination, even if it's antagonistic, to be able to be like, if you've got somebody who's giving you static and giving you pushback on the stand, to just remain calm, and just keep plugging away and just effectively disassembling what they're saying without getting, like, aggressive back. Because you can see in our chat, exactly how that feels to people. Like, people like have an adverse reaction to it. Like, this fucking guy, the way this guy talks to people, I can't stand it. And, as effective as I think that he may be technically, I cannot ignore the fact of his impact on people personally, because both things matter. You know what I'm saying? So,
plus, I think if this was the witness who was, like, going back at him, people would accept it more. But she's, like, so, like,
meek,
like,
right?
it's almost like meek, yeah. Like, they
Yes.
talk about almost crying. Like, it's almost, we can't see, but, like, I wonder what her, like, jury's not gonna like a guy beating up on a girl like that. But
And it's like, and it's tough with her because she's not sympathetic, because she did a really shitty job.
yeah, exactly. It's such an interesting dynamic, the whole thing.
It's interesting.
Let's see how this goes.
Call was made. Ma'am, do you recall about what time the call was made, the 911 call was made?
I don't recall the exact time it was made, no.
But you did say that you dispatched your deputy coroner, Tammy Wilmore, to be there because she could have gotten there within 10 minutes, right?
Correct, yes.
And the purpose for that is that she lives, we're not going to say the town, but she lives close by this residence.
Yes.
And she could get there relatively quickly, correct?
Quicker than me, yes.
So when the dispatch 911 call was made, Miss Wilmore was there within 10 minutes, right?
She was in bed when it happened, so probably not 10 minutes. She had to get dressed and gather her stuff and respond to the scene, yes.
But you were there within 20 minutes and she arrived before you got there.
I said approximately.
Yeah. So prosecuting attorneys suggesting that someone ran out and bought a bunch of supplements, staged this thing, and within 10 minutes of Miss Wilmore arriving, planted all of this evidence. That isn't very realistic, is it?
Could have happened before.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Before.
Fair enough. Thank you, Judge. Nothing else.
All right. That concludes the testimony then of Coroner Dye. Is the state seeking to recall the witness in the future?
No, the state is hoping
Not
they
a
never
chance.
they hope they never have to talk to her again.
On the defense.
And Judge, Miss Dye is under subpoena from my office, but I'm releasing her from that subpoena today.
Okay. So that does conclude your testimony for the trial. You can be excused. Thank you for appearing.
Who's next?
You can go ahead and step down from the witness box and we'll
The medical
gather
examiner,
anything that was
perhaps?
there in way of exhibits. All right, the state may call its next witness.
She's like, fuck.
Judge, at this time, the state would call
I'm out of
Kelsey
here.
Harris.
She's gonna get in her car.
Screw you guys. I'm going home.
Screw you guys. I'm going home.
Kelsey Hall, I think was.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the state, you want to try to rehabilitate that witness by probably putting the ME on, but
let's see.
Start with the examination. Ms. Harris, have you viewed, watched online, or observed any of the trial testimony that's taken place since this case started?
No, I have not.
All right. Have you talked to anyone else about the
Coroner named
testimony
Guy
they've
is
given in
weird.
trial?
Just
No.
notice the same. Or is
Okay.
it apropos?
Mr. Wixom, you can
Good
proceed
call.
with your direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ma'am. Will you please state your full name for the record?
Kelsey Harris,
Will you please spell it for the reporter?
KELSIE HARRIS,
And where do you live?
Sugar City.
Sugar City. That's a cool.
Is that here in Idaho?
Yes.
I live in Sugar Grove. It's amazing.
Look at that.
A couple of sugar towns.
Ma'am, do you recall knowing a Tammy Daybell?
Yes.
I want to draw your attention back to October of 2019. Did you have any association or interaction with Ms. Daybell back then?
Yes.
What was that association?
She was a student in my clogging class in Sugar City, and she also worked at the school as a librarian. And at the time, I worked at the school as well.
What did you do at the school at the time?
I worked in the kitchen.
Did you have regular contact while at work with Ms. Daybell?
Yes, I saw her frequently.
Friend of Tammy.
Would you? How often during the course of a week or a day might you have?
Every day I would see her.
How would you generally describe your relationship with her?
We were friends. We would see each other at class, in my class and at the school, and have conversation more than just a hello.
Okay. And you mentioned a clogging class. For the sake of jurors or any of us who
What the
may
hell
not
is
understand
clogging?
clogging, will you explain what that
Clogging,
is?
you know, clogs.
So clogging
Wooden
is a
shoes?
fast-paced style of dance, and you wear clogging shoes that are similar to a tap shoe. It has 2 taps, and it creates loud sounds and also different rhythm steps.
Jay, I think
And
you'd be an
did you
excellent
say you
clogger.
attended the class with her or you teach the clogging class?
I was the instructor of the class.
To the best that you can you recall what time frame was it that Tammy was attending that class?
It was the end of August, early September until the time of her death in October 2019.
How often was the class held?
It was every week, a 60-minute class once a week.
Did she attend regularly?
Yes, every class.
How would you describe clogging overall? Would it be low intensity, medium intensity, high intensity? Where would you put it?
I would say medium intensity because you're still getting that cardio and getting your heart rate up.
And when students are in the class, do you have the opportunity to observe them?
Yes, I do.
How often do you recall being able to see Tammy in class while she was clogging?
The whole time I'm observing all of the students, making sure there's no falling behind, that they're able to keep up with the steps that I'm teaching. And so
This is
I'm
to show that
constantly
Tammy was in good
watching
shape.
the students that
healthy.
way.
She
Wait,
was
what?
crushing clogging.
Holy shit. I'm going to show you. I'm going to take a quick break here. This guy that there's a guy that went viral. I remember when this went viral. You guys probably saw this. I'm going to show you right now. I didn't realize this was fucking clogging the whole time. Hold on, guys. I'll go right back to the testimony. Don't worry. But if you're not sure what clogging is, remember this guy?
Oh, hell yeah, dude. That guy's crushing the game. But he doesn't have the clog shoes on. He's just crushing the sneaks. I love that guy, though.
So fast.
He's dancing on the cloud. You know what I mean?
All right. If I get a fucking copyright claim for that song,
You're
I'm going to
fucked.
throw my
Copyright
computer
claim.
into the fucking ocean. I swear.
From your recollection, do you ever recall her falling behind in class?
No,
Do you ever recall any issues with her getting tired?
no,
Any any issues at all that you recall with her ability to perform the clogging and keep up with the class?
No.
Now, with respect to any other activities, did you have any other activities that you were involved with, Tammy Ann?
I did.
What were those?
So I attended a high fitness class in St. Anthony, and I stood right next to Tammy in that class, and that was my first time going. I was not the instructor at the time. I was just a participant, and I stood right next to Tammy in that class.
And for the jury's sake, will you just kind of elaborate, what did you do in high fitness class?
So a high fitness class is very high intensity. You're doing burpees, a lot of jumping jacks, explosive movements to really get the heart rate up.
And you said you were standing next to her in class?
Yes, I was.
How often was that class held?
2 times a week.
How long was each class?
60-minute class.
Did Tammy, as you recall, attend that regularly?
Yes.
What time frame do you recall attending that class with Tammy relative to her death?
It was about late September of 2019.
And what did you observe, if anything, about Tammy's performance in that class?
Nothing like, so I observed that she was able to keep up in that class and was doing those high intensity moves like the burpees and things like that. And she was able to keep up with that class as well.
And just as a comparison, how different was high fitness than clogging in terms of intensity?
So high fitness is very high intensity. Clogging is still that cardio workout, getting your heart rate up. But as far as like the up and down movements, clogging, we're still moving at a fast pace. And yeah.
Okay. So just based upon your personal observations overall with what you saw in Tammy in those classes and the interactions at school, let me withdraw that and go back. With respect to your interactions at school and at work, did you have any occasion to observe anything that would give you clues about Tammy's health?
No.
So did you, withdrawn, based upon what you observed in clogging and in high fitness, did you ever see anything that would give you any questions or concerns about how healthy she was?
No.
Did you ever see anything about her struggling or not keeping up?
No, not at all.
Did she ever express any concerns about how she was feeling?
No.
And at these classes, did you talk to her regularly?
I did, yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
All right, thank you.
Again, when did these clogging classes start?
It was the end of August, early September, and they ran every week. And that was the year 2019.
So it was once a week.
Yes.
And let's say you started in September. So there were a total of 5 classes that Tammy attended before she passed away. Would that be fair?
Yeah, correct.
5 classes.
Yes.
Okay. And the same thing for the other activity, the high intensity. She only went to one of those though, right?
I could tell she went to more of those. I just attended the one class for my first time.
Well, you don't know whether she attended more. You only saw her at one of those high intensity classes. Isn't that true?
So yes, I did see her.
Okay.
And
Now, I don't want to disparage anybody, but would you describe Tammy's figure as being a body of someone who was extremely fit?
I would say she was a very fit woman.
You'd say she was a very fit woman. Okay.
I would.
I don't want to disparage women, anyone, but did she
I'm
look
gonna
fit?
disparage Tammy.
Come on, Pryor, you prick.
All the women on the jury hate him now.
Oh, what a douche.
If they didn't
What
already hate
a
him, they
fucking
really
douche.
Now, you know her daughter.
I got a sound
Emma,
effect
right?
for this douche. Hold on. for some folks will get this one, but this is what I would be saying right now in there.
I didn't think so.
Boo this man!
For my half-baked fans out there.
Correct.
And her daughter Emma went to the one high-intensity class with her as well, right?
Correct.
And that's the only time you saw Emma and Tammy at the high-intensity class that one time, right?
So Emma was a participant as well in my clogging class.
And I'm going to get to that. Emma would stand with her mother at the back of the clogging class and participate in that as well in the very back of the room, right?
Right.
Right. And how many people were in this clogging class?
There were about 7 total.
Okay. And again, if I understand, the clogging classes were twice a week and about the same time, September until Tammy passed in October, right?
Correct. The clogging class was once a week.
Oh, the clogging was once a week? Oh, I'm sorry. I had it down for twice. It was only
The
once a
high
week.
fitness class was twice a week.
Oh, but the high fitness, you only saw her there once. The clogging, you saw her for all 5 or 6 of the classes she attended that time, right?
Yes.
And her daughter Emma was there right next to her the whole time, correct?
Correct.
So if there were any issues, you're in the front of the class. If there were any issues with her mother, Emma would probably be the best judge of whether there were issues with her mother and her activity and participation level. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Now you said you worked at the school. You worked in the cafeteria or the food service portion of the school.
Yes.
Tammy was a librarian. You also know that Emma was teaching at that school as well, right?
Right.
And it was frequent in her usual practice for Emma and her mother to get together every time they had an opportunity to do so, right?
Objection, Your Honor. That assumes facts, not evidence.
Stain.
Are you aware that whenever there was any free time during the school hours, that it was always Emma and her mother who would spend the majority of the time together?
Yes.
All right. Nothing else, Judge. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for the
recross?
PayPal, Michelle.
Just a couple
Thank
of
you so
questions,
much.
if I may, Your Honor.
Very well. I'm sorry, redirect, Mr. Wixom.
Which may, Judge. Ma'am, just very quickly, regardless of the cross-examination,
Judge, I'm going to object.
It's argumentative.
fair enough.
Question.
Yeah.
Fair
With
enough.
respect to the questions that you were just asked, is there any doubt that you have in your assessment of watching Tammy in clogging class and her performance?
There's no doubt. No.
So you are confident in what you've told
Asked
the
and
jury?
answered.
Overruled.
You are confident in what you've told the jury about your personal observations about Tammy and how she performed?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Any need to recall the witness from the state or the defense?
Not from the defense, Judge.
Not from the state, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. That concludes your testimony in the trial. Thank you for appearing. You may go ahead and step down from the witness box. And you're released from any subpoena.
I mean, how tone deaf to say that? What a fucking idiot.
Miller?
Oh, sorry.
And call its next witness.
Judge, at this time, the state would call Shanna Miller.
What a fucking dope. Shannon Miller. I'm not sure who she is. We will find out.
All right. The witness has been
Another
sworn.
friend.
I'll just have a couple
They're trying to
questions before
establish
we
that
begin
Tammy
with
was in
the
good
examination.
Good physical condition, obviously.
Right.
This trial, Ms. Miller, has been live streamed and publicly available for viewing. Have you observed or watched any of the trial testimony that's taken place?
No, I have not, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Have you discussed with anyone else their testimony they've given in the trial?
No, I have not.
All right, thank you for that affirmation. Mr. Wixom, you may proceed with direct.
Thank you. Good morning, ma'am. Will you please state your full name for the record?
Shanna Miller,
Will you spell it, please?
SHANNAMILLER,
And where do you live?
St. Anthony, Idaho.
And what do you do for work?
I have been retired for the last year and a half, but previous to that, I was a school teacher for 34 years.
What school did you teach at?
Central Elementary in Sugar City.
During your time teaching at Central Elementary, do you recall working with Tammy Daybell?
Yes, I do.
And Did you become aware back in October of 2019 that she'd passed?
Yes.
Could you explain to the jury how often and in what way did you interact with Tammy at your work?
I was actually on the committee that interviewed Tammy for a job position at our school back in the spring of, I believe it was 2017. She was hired to be our computer specialist and our librarian. She also helped out with the lunch count, checking the kids in as they went to lunch. So I was her colleague after we hired her. I also attended a high fitness class in St. Anthony with her and her daughter twice a week.
And what was that high fitness class?
It's called High Fit. It's a high intensity workout that lasts an hour. It consists of burpees, jumping jacks, lunges, squats, planks, all set to music.
And how often did you attend that class?
At the time, I was attending twice a week.
Do you recall how often at the time, prior to her death, Tammy was attending the class?
Yes, she and her daughter started attending, I believe it was the spring of 2018, and they attended up until her death in October of 2019.
Were they regular attenders?
Yes.
When they came to class, did you have opportunity to interact with Tammy or observe how she was doing?
Yes, I was on the back row, so all I needed to do was look over. Yeah, I had opportunity to observe them.
Would you feel like you had a good vantage point typically?
Yes.
What observations, if any, did you make about Tammy's performance in that class?
Well, it is a very rigorous exercise. It's highly aerobic. And at first it's hard for anyone that's not in great shape to be able to have the stamina and the strength to be able to complete it. And at first they weren't able to complete all of the exercises are set to, songs. So they weren't maybe able to do all of the exercises completely correct or finish them, accordingly at first. But as time went on, I would say after the first, I don't know, several weeks, maybe a couple months, they were able to complete the workout.
With respect to, let's narrow it down to the last few months prior to Tammy's death.
Okay.
Were there ever times that you saw Tammy lag behind?
No.
Did she ever stop or take breaks?
No.
Any indication to you that she wasn't keeping up in the class?
No.
Are you confident that based upon your interaction with her at the class and what you could see, that you would have observed that had she fallen back?
No.
You're not confident, or?
Oh, sorry. Can you rephrase that question?
Sure.
That's long.
Any reason for you to think that you weren't able to have a good observation of Tammy and assess how she was doing?
Yes, I was able to, yes, I would be able to be confident in to say that, yes, I did.
Okay. And what about with work? I didn't ask. How often did you interact with Tammy at work?
I would see her probably, I would say every day, sometimes several times a day. When I took my kids to library, that was once a week. Computer lab was once a week, maybe twice a week. Can't remember for sure. And then every day as I took my kids into the lunchroom, she'd check the kids off as they came through the lunch line. I would see her then.
Based on observations at work, do you feel like...
Bob, you did a poll? You're muted, Bob.
It's an important poll, Jay. Does Chad's head weigh more than 50 pounds or less?
Holy shit, Bob. You're not going to believe this. I also did a poll. I had no idea you were doing a poll, except mine. Mine is, with all due respect, is John Pryor a douche canoe. That's so funny that we both did polls. I had no idea you were doing a poll.
I know. Great minds, man. Great minds.
That's amazing.
I just can't stop thinking about the size of Chad's head. Chad's head is huge. So huge.
Observations about her health or fitness from what you saw at work?
I would say from the time that she started the fitness class, her confidence level in herself, her I think her overall image of herself, I think it had improved. She looked like she was in great health and in great shape to me.
And in terms of observing her doing her daily duties at work, did you ever see her get tired or worn out?
No.
What was your reaction when you first learned of Tammy's death?
Complete shock.
Why is that?
Because hours before that, I had seen her at work and she was happy, healthy, conversing with the kids as I guess the last time I would have seen her would have been, the kids were going through the lunch line. She was conversing with them, complimenting them, smiling. She seemed perfectly healthy to me.
Thank you. I have no further questions at this time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wixon. Cross-examination.
Donna Barkley with a $20 cash app. It says, thanks, Jay. You work so hard. Thank you so much, Donna. And I know you sent some treats for my friends the other day, Donna.
Good morning, Ms. Miller.
Good morning.
Thank you so much.
So your testimony is that you first started with the interview process of Tammy in the spring of 2017. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
That means that she would have started her first year in the fall to start as her job as a librarian. Would that be fair?
Of 2017?
Of fall of 2017.
Yes, I believe that is correct.
Okay. You're not sure, though. It could be 2018.
Well, if I did the math correctly, she had worked there she was in her second year of teaching. The second year would have been 2019 to 2020. So that would have been 2018 to 2019, the year that she started working. Yeah.
So 2018, right?
Yes, it was 2000.
So when you say 2017, you really didn't know Tammy until the spring when you met her of 2018, correct?
I would have to do the math on that.
Okay.
Still not convinced.
Well, she was in her second year of teaching at the school when she passed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the first year of school, that's sort of a probationary period, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And in that probationary period is when they give you the basic benefits, the start benefits that you have to go through as part of your probation, things like life insurance and medical care and all of that. You're given that minimum plan. And then after the first year, that's when you choose to upgrade to add the additional life insurance and death benefits and all that other stuff, right?
Objection, Your Honor. This is outside the scope.
Overruled.
That's when that second year is when you start adding and increasing all of those additional benefits because you've put a year in as your probationary period, right? Ma'am?
I don't know.
Okay, well, you
answer
worked
that.
there.
Yes, I did for 34 years. That was a long time ago.
Okay,
when I
so
first started working there.
So you're
But
not,
I didn't up my death benefit my second year.
okay. I'm sorry, you what?
I did not up my death benefit the second year that I taught.
But that's not an uncommon thing to up your death benefit in the second year after you get that eligibility, right?
I couldn't answer that.
Right. And you said 2017, but really it was 2018 when you first met her in the spring, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Okay. And we had a previous witness who talked about these high intensity classes. And you're telling me that these high intensity classes started when?
They started attending. When they started attending or when they started?
When they started.
The instructor has been teaching those high intensity classes for the last at least 6 years. And she was teaching Zumba before that.
Okay.
Zumba, nice.
So your testimony is that you met Tammy in the spring of 2018. And ironically enough, that was exactly the time she started these high intensity dance classes at the same time, right? And that's how you became such fast friends, right?
No, I became friends before that at school.
Okay. With Tammy at school?
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't working there.
Well, shortly after she started working there, obviously we became friends.
Okay. And she started working there in the fall of 2018 as the full-time librarian, didn't she?
Yes.
Okay. So isn't it true, ma'am, that the high-intensity classes started in September of 2019?
That they started in 2019? No, she had been attending for at least 9 months prior to that.
Okay.
Actually, it was more like a year and a half because she had started, I remember she'd started in the spring because her and her daughter had expressed that they wanted to get in shape for a 5K. And
Okay.
so some of my coworkers said, well, you should come to High Fit and
Okay.
that will help you get in shape. And that would have been in the spring. So she did it that spring and then that fall, then the following spring.
Okay, so in the spring of 2008, when you first met her, basically what happened in the very first spring when you were interviewing her, she signs up for High Fitness. She decides she's going to do a 5K. She's going to do all of these things.
No, we hired her.
My question,
Well,
please.
Mr. Pryor, problem is it's argumentative, so just ask a question, please.
I didn't hear an objection from the prosecutor, Judge.
Oh,
I know, but in fairness, it's in the long line of
Dick.
argument that she started responding. So just please go with questioning on cross.
Yeah. And you would agree with me that Emma was there for all of the times that Tammy was involved in that class. Would that be fair?
I believe so.
Okay, so Emma was standing next to her the entire time, right?
They worked out next to each other.
Okay. And did you watch Tammy the entire time that you participated in these high intensity exercises?
Off and on. I mean, you're always looking around, seeing, what everybody else is doing, if they're following the instructor.
And how many participants were in these high intensity exercise classes?
It would depend. There could be as few as 15, as many as upwards of 24 to 30, depending on the night.
Do you know Kelsey Harris?
Yes.
Okay. Friend of yours?
No. Well, coworker, colleague.
Okay. You don't go to any classes with her, right?
No.
Okay. So how would you evaluate, if you were to make a determination, would you say that Tammy Daybell was very fit?
Yes.
So she had a low body fat? She had a petite figure? Is that what you're telling me?
dude, what a dick.
You don't have to have a low body fat or a petite figure to be highly fit. But what I observed is that she had the stamina from the time she started to the fall that she passed. She had the stamina to be able to complete those rigorous workouts.
Okay. Judge, I have nothing else. Thank you.
Okay.
Redirect, Mr. Wixon.
No, Your Honor, we would excuse the witness.
All right, that concludes your testimony. Thank you very much for appearing today.
Oh man, she just fucked Pryor up.
Released from any subpoena.
Bob, is it good to
And
insinuate a murdered
this time we
woman
would call-
who was overweight? Like,
Well, I get what he's trying to do. Like, obviously, the state is trying to show that she was fit. That like this whole narrative that she was sick and sickly prior to her dying is complete and utter bullshit.
I don't think anyone's believing that this old lady came in there. Was that an old lady?
No, Tammy wasn't an old
No,
lady.
the one right there.
No, she wasn't. No, she wasn't an old lady.
She had an old sounding voice.
No, she looked like wow. Allison said like she was,
folks, that's Allie. If you don't, that's Allie.
she's over there on the side, like judging, like how like
She sounded really old. She sounded like an old bag. How would she know if she...
no, she was like she knew
No,
her.
I'm saying that I don't think anyone would think that woman would get up there and lie.
Oh, she owned that.
Yeah.
Like that, like he did. Like
Absolutely.
those potentially were very powerful witnesses. As
I agree. I
They were
agree.
the strongest I've heard.
yeah, just like short, sweet, and completely are disproving the fact that Tammy was sickly.
Exactly.
You know, like
And now why'd he say she's sickly when she's not sickly?
yeah, Allie.
Allie coming in hot. All right,
Coming
is this
in
a
hot.
gonna make perhaps another friend here? Let's see.
Christy L says Allie is right. She sounded like an old lady.
I told you.
I
Good morning,
agree.
Ms.
So
Geisler.
far, they
Before
were
we
effective
commence
witnesses.
with
Short and sweet.
examination
You don't need to
by
have somebody up
the
there for a long
state,
time.
I just have a
Yeah,
few
huge
questions
impact.
now that you've been placed under oath. This trial has been broadcast on a court YouTube channel and publicly available to view. Have you observed any of the trial testimony since the case began?
I have not.
Okay. Have you discussed with anyone else the testimony they've given in the trial?
I have not.
Okay, thanks for your responses. Mr. Wixom, you can inquire on direct.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, will you please state your full name for the record?
Yep, Jennifer C. Geisler,
And will you please spell that?
JENNIFERCGEISLER.
Thank you. And where do you
Wes.
live?
I live in St. Anthony.
Appreciate that.
And where do you work?
I work at Central Elementary.
What is your job there?
I'm a first grade teacher. Yep, first grade.
These are all.
How long have you worked at the
teaching
elementary school?
homies.
It's been about 26 years.
I want to draw your attention back to the summer and fall of 2019. Do you remember working with Tammy Daybell?
I do.
Okay. Can you explain to the jury, well, first, did you have interactions with Tammy at work?
I did. She was our librarian.
Could you please explain to the jury how often or frequently you interacted with her and what capacity?
I would probably see her at least every day going back and forth in the hall. I took my class to library once a week, and so I'd stop and talk. Frequently, probably about 2 to 3 times a week, I ate lunch with her. Our first grade team eats lunch first, and we go into the lunchroom, our teacher workroom, and Tammy usually would come in and eat with us.
How would you describe your relationship with Tammy just overall?
Just friends. We were good friends.
And while working with her, what did you observe about her personality overall?
She was just super friendly, always bubbly, happy. She was a person that you would like to be around.
Was that the case in the late summer, early fall of 2019 before she passed?
Yeah. Yep.
And did you ever do anything or associate with Tammy outside of school?
I did.
What did you do?
So she came to, it was a high fitness class that we had up in St. Anthony, and twice a week I had invited her and Emma to come up and give it a try. And they came up and joined us. It's about an hour twice a week at night. And so they came up and exercised with us.
Was she regularly attending the class after you invited her?
She did.
Thank you so much, Tina, gifting out a membership. Thank you, Tina, very much.
Did she come both classes each week?
Most often.
When she was in class with you, did you have any opportunity to observe how she was doing in class?
So most of the time I was up in the front row. Tammy and Emma are in the back row. So I didn't get to see them through every song, but some of the songs you turn around and you can see they were always funny and giggly back there, and would sometimes add their own moves into the songs with them. And then at the end of the class, my sister and I go back and we kind of check everybody out. I punch her base cards. And so as they come through, I could talk to Tammy and Emma as they came through.
Did Tammy ever make any comments about how she was doing in class?
She loved it. She always thought it was just fun.
Did you observe how she was performing? Did she seem to be keeping up in the class?
Yeah, she did. Like when they come through, usually when you finish, you're pretty sweaty. And as she came through, she was as sweaty as everybody else.
Do you recall ever seeing any times where she had to take a break or got short of breath, anything like that?
Not that I recall.
When was the last time that you personally recall interacting with Tammy?
It was the Friday right before she died.
What was that interaction that you had with her?
I ate lunch across the table from her.
And what observations, if any, did you have of her health that day?
Just like a normal day. She was healthy, happy, talkative. She was sitting by her son, Seth. He was substituting that day, and just a normal day.
What was your reaction when you had learned that she passed?
I was super surprised that she had passed.
Why?
Because she was just so healthy just the day before, and I was just talking to her.
Man, that's compelling.
Boom.
And then last question, based upon what you observed, do you think you had enough opportunity to see Tammy in class and how her performance to have a fair assessment of how she was doing?
I do.
So had she fallen back or gotten tired, do you believe that you would have seen that?
Yeah.
How far away were you from her in the class typically?
I'm terrible at distance. I was like, she's probably 3 rows back. And it's just in their small little elementary gym.
Do you feel like you could see her well?
Yes.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
All right.
Ma'am, you're not a doctor, correct? Yes. Have you seen the movie Inner Space? Have you been able to shrink yourself down and get to Tammy
Cross-examination.
Daybell's bloodstream? So you can't tell it.
He's gonna do something like that.
With all due respect, was she fat or what? I mean,
Tammy signed and Emma. About what time did Tammy and Emma sign up for the Zumba class?
Mhm. I don't remember the exact day.
Okay. Do you remember talking to Officer Mattingly about that?
I do.
Okay. Would it surprise you to learn that you told Officer Mattingly that Tammy had been in the Zumba class for around 4 months?
Yes, I think I did.
About what you said?
That's about what I said.
Okay. You also told Officer Mattingly that you didn't know whether Tammy was doing the high workout or the low intensity workout. Remember telling him that as well?
I remember telling him I didn't get to see her with every song, but as I turned, you could look back that way.
Okay. And you were in the front row, right?
I am.
And Tammy was in the back row.
Yes.
So in order to see Tammy, you would have had to purposely turn around and observe her, right?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, Emma was at every single one of the classes with her mother, correct?
Yes, she would come with her mom.
Now, you first met Tammy when?
When she started teaching or was our librarian hired at our school.
2018?
If that's when. I can't remember when she was hired.
Okay. You mentioned that you guys were such good friends. You never went over to her house, though, did you?
No, just like school friends.
Oh, school friends. So you would just talk periodically during the day, right?
Right.
And teachers are busy. They have to take care of their students, correct?
Yep. We have our downtime at lunch.
Right. But the reality is that most of the downtime at lunch, it was Tammy and Emma who were spending their time together at almost every lunch. Do you recall that?
So Tammy would come in and sit with us to eat. Emma taught 3rd grade, and so her lunch was a little bit later in the day.
But they would spend time during the lunch hour together, right?
Possibly, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Judge, I don't have anything else. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Redirect?
May I have just a couple of questions?
Yes.
Thank you.
over 1,000 folks now combined between Twitter and YouTube. Thank you all so much for being here. We appreciate
Ma'am,
it.
just
Thanks,
to
guys.
be
We love
clear, are Zumba and high
Yeah,
fitness
there's not
class
much
the
you can
same
do with these
class?
witnesses. you know?
So
Right.
that's, I was checking because I had talked to him before about Zumba. When I had asked Chrissy just before, how long have we been doing high fit? And she had clarified that we've been doing it for 6 years. And so it was more high fit when Emma and Tammy started coming. High fit is more intense. You got lots of jumping jacks and burpees and tuck jumps, and it's a lot more physical workout than Zumba. Zumba's a little bit more dancey.
I think you just were asked some questions about eating lunch with Tammy. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have the opportunity to observe what kinds of food she ate or how healthy her eating was?
Yes, because if I followed her through the lunch line, I always commented she took all the vegetables. I would usually follow through and skip the vegetables and take the cookies and stuff.
Same,
And I
girl.
had commented
Same.
to her that she eats super healthy. I wish I ate as healthy as she did.
During that last several months before she passed, did you ever observe her to gain or lose any weight?
Judge, this is going beyond scope.
Is sustained.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Mary Cross,
If the court tells me where they're going to allow me to go on recross, I will.
just on those very first comments about her testimony.
Oh, boy. Damn right, Don. I do take all the chicken nuggets.
So I also must have misunderstood. So the high fitness is one class, correct?
Yes.
When did Tammy start doing the high fitness class?
So it was the same. I had just mentioned before when they had asked me that I had said it was Zumba. We had started out doing Zumba a long time ago, and then our teacher, Chrissy, has turned it into a high fit class.
Oh, so it was all the same
So it's
class.
all been high, not all the same. It went from Zumba, right? And then we stopped and then went into a high fit
Okay.
and had been doing that for a while before Tammy and Emma joined in.
So
So instead of Zumba, they were doing a high fit.
that was about 4 months of that, right?
Yes, and probably longer. I don't recall exactly when they started.
So it could have been a little longer, could have been a little shorter.
Not shorter, but it could have been longer
Oh, how do you know that it wasn't shorter?
because I knew they were coming longer than 4 months.
Okay. Hey, Judge, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That concludes the testimony then of this witness. Is she permitted to be released from any subpoena?
From the defense, yes.
From the
Okay.
state as well, Your Honor.
All right, you're released from your subpoena. Thank you for appearing. You want to get into another witness, or do you want to take the lunch recess?
Your Honor, the next witness will be a little more lengthy, and so I think we would probably end up at a weird stopping point. So we would request that we maybe just break 10 minutes early.
Okay.
That would be my request as well, Judge.
I'm fine with that. We'll go ahead and take the noon recess. We'll go ahead and be in recess, and let's try and resume with additional testimony right at 1 o'clock.
All right, folks. We are at lunchtime.
El Luncherino. El Luncherino. So yeah, I thought that was those were three very effective witnesses. I mean,
After one pretty terrible witness.
right, like that was a good way to have the jury forget about that woman. Because they really kind of countered everything that she was saying. In terms of like Tammy clearly was. I mean, you ever done a burpee, dude?
Those are freaking hard, man.
They were freaking hard, dude. They're very, very. Yes, I did have three very effective polls. My last one, I had a typo in it, but was can John Pryor do even one burpee? 5 people, 5% actually said yes. The other was no, his ego is too inflated. Old John Pryor, everybody hates him.
All right, folks.
So, yeah, you guys get your eat on, get all psyched up for the afternoon sesh, and we will be back.
And possibly by then we'll have I haven't been checking, but possibly we'll have a update if they have a jury in Karen Reed. Let me just check real quick.
I mean,
No, as of 2 minutes ago, there's only 28 left in the pool, and they are still being interviewed. So maybe we'll have an update then.
Have JLR and Turtle Boy gotten into a fist fight though? That's what people really want to know.
I know, right? Have they planned a pay-per-view where they box or something?
Yeah.
I mean, holy
They're
crap.
going to be the undercard for Tyson and YouTube, dude. Whatever his name
Yeah.
is.
All right, folks. We'll be back in